Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of the Unexplained. And gosh, what's my name? I'm missing my cue card here. Oh, that's right. I'm Jim. Jim with two M's. Why? Who knows? Anyhow, I am here joined this evening. We're doing a special broadcast today, and we've got a special roundtable discussion that we're starting out here. But before we get to that, I want to introduce my always awesome, my co-creator, my co-host, my brother from another mother, Mr. Roger Stokes. Roger, how are you doing, sir?
Well, it has been an amazing week. So I am so happy to be here tonight and so happy to have our special guests and our viewers. Tonight we have such a great episode and things to talk about, all things Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And with that, Jim, I am going to let you introduce our amazing guests.
That is correct. And so to get started here, some of you will remember our first guest because he has joined us here on the Soul of the Unexplained before. And that is Mr. John Neiberger from the great state of California. California, Colorado, Jim. Blooper reel has already started, right?
I
So
love it.
if you recall, folks, John, as I like to call him, is he is my favorite Denver Broncos fan. And coming from a Raiders fan, a lifelong Raiders fan, John, that's a pretty big compliment. How you
Yeah,
doing, buddy?
that is. You're probably my. I think you must be my favorite Raiders fan too. So
Wow.
it goes
Right
both
on.
ways.
Right on. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And joining us for the very first time is another gentleman that I'm excited to introduce to all of you. He hails from the great state of Texas originally, but he also lives in the state of Colorado. And believe it or not, if I'm not mistaken, he's not a Denver Broncos fan. He's actually a Dallas Cowboys fan. So tip of the hat to Dennis there. Welcome, please, to Mr. Dennis Clark. Dennis, how are you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jim. Thank you for having me tonight.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have both you and John join us. And I have to say, folks, another thing that I have to mention about both John and Dennis is that I got to meet both of them at Phenomicon last year. And in fact, Dennis, you have the distinction of being one of the few people that's actually bought me tacos. So
That's right.
that's like,
That's
that
right.
that automatically gives you legend status in my book right there.
Thank you very much.
Right on. So real quickly, John and Dennis, tell us what you guys do when you're not appearing on the Soul of the Unexplained. What do you guys do?
Go for it, Dennis.
Let's see. I'm recently retired, actually. I just got my paperwork. I'm a retired electrical engineer. Went to University of Texas, and man, I play music. I like to walk in the park, and I like to listen to birds sing.
Man after my own heart. That's awesome. John, how about you?
Day job most of the time. I'm a network engineer for a big, well-known service provider, but that takes up a lot of my time. But other than that, I sit around, catch up on the Skinwalker Ranch and paranormal podcasts and such, and yeah, do some photography and some music, occasionally playing guitar, But that's about it.
And folks, I can absolutely attest that both John and Dennis are fantastic guitar players, and they have an impeccable taste of music.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I would love to see happen, because all four of us here are going to be going to Phenomicon this year in September of 2024. I would love to have an opportunity where at least me and John and Dennis here can get together and jam. And I mean, I'm not even a great guitar player, but of course the dream would be to also get Travis Taylor, Eric Bard, Jay Stratton, Pete Kelsey, and get something get something organized, because I know there's other insiders, Skinwalker Ranch insiders that are going to Phenomicon that are also big musicians like we are, that would just love to have that opportunity. So I'm kind of secretly hoping that we can maybe put in the right word with somebody and organize like an impromptu bonfire, and just kind of like get the acoustic guitars out and just kind of do our thing. I think that would be like the ultimate icing on the cake experience for Phenomicon for a music dork like me anyway. What do you guys think?
I would totally be for it. I would
Yeah.
be
Yep. Yeah. So I didn't mean to, if we could pull it off, yeah, that'd be great. Now, if you're talking acoustic guitar, I need to practice more. I need to get my chops back in shape. My hand couldn't take an acoustic guitar for too long.
Right on. Yeah, that would just be awesome. So speaking of Skinwalker Ranch, folks, what we're here to talk about today is we're doing a bit of a primer for The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch Season 5, which of course is the amazing docuseries of the History Channel, and we are getting ready to head into its 5th season, which debuts this next Tuesday on the 23rd of April on the History Channel. And before we kind of get there to where we're going to start talking about some of the things that we're looking forward to in season 5, some of the things that we hope to see in season 5, and let me start with a disclaimer right now, folks. I don't have any kind of inside information. I haven't bent anybody's ear. So all that we're talking about tonight is from the inside, from the insight, if you will, the perspective of 4 Skinwalker Ranch Insider members. And to that end, do we have inside information? No, not really. We're just really big fans that happen to share the passion of being Skinwalker Ranch Insiders and having an active interest in the investigation and the research that goes on there. So everything that you're going to hear tonight for us talking about season 5 is just our own personal thoughts, our own personal, I hate to use the term speculation, but we're really just going to talk about what we would like to see and where we would like to see the investigation go is essentially what it's going to come down to once we start talking about season 5. But before we get there, guys, let's take this opportunity and talk about what exactly is the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program, because we're going to use that term a lot. And of course, Roger and I have talked about that program a lot in our previous podcasts. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what exactly this Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program is. So to ask you that question, Raj, because you're an insider too, how would you explain what the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program is all about? What exactly is this thing?
It's a very mysterious organization that you have to pass a lot of tests to get into.
That's
And
right, the initiation.
you have to eat tacos, Jim, tacos, so you're good.
Oh, no wonder they took me.
No, in all seriousness, the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program is a really good way for people with similar interests that love everything that the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and the people working out there do. And it gives you access, and that's why they call it the Insider. You do pay, you can either pay an annual fee, I think close to like $90 to $100, that you have a month-by-month fee that you can pay. But it gives you access to a Discord server where you can actually interact with a lot of like-minded people, as well as the people that work out on the ranch. It gives you access to, this is one of the things that I love. It gives you access to a 24/7 live view of cameras out there on Skinwalker Ranch. And as you watch that, it's live. You can talk to other members. I've seen Caleb, I've seen Travis, I've seen Eric Bard. They've jumped in, they talk with people. And they also do a lot of what are called or Q&As or chips and salsa, where only insiders who are members can sit down and actually have a question and answer with them. And it's frankly, it's a lot of fun. You do get a little bit more. So Jimm's was talking a little bit earlier saying, like, we don't have insider information on like upcoming seasons and things like that, but we do get insights on past seasons. And it's really fun to talk about the experiences and ask questions and get more clarifications on things that may have happened on the show but weren't explained incredibly well. You really get those firsthand experiences from people working on the ranch. But also, and again, this is another great point for me, is that like we have John here, we have Dennis here. Everyone has their own interesting things that have happened, whether it's paranormal, UFO, UAP, things like that. And we discuss those, and it's really a safe place and be an insider.
Absolutely. Well said, Roger. And the only thing that I would add is kind of what Roger was leaning into, and I'll kind of dovetail into the last bit of what Roger was saying, is it's a great community. And that's probably one of the best keywords that I would use to describe the Skinwalker Ranch Insiders. It is a legitimate community, and it's a community that is absolutely wonderful to be a part of because it has led me to meet all kinds of people that probably I never would have met in any other way, shape, or form had it not been for this insider program or through Phenomicon, which of course the Skinwalker Ranch Insiders have a large presence at Phenomicon, which we've talked about many times before. But it's allowed me to meet and connect with great people like John and Dennis, who are joining us this evening, and so many others. I mean, I could name so many wonderful insiders like Mary Lee and Miriam and Michelle and Shannon DeSalvo and Heather and Christy and just so many wonderful people that I've been able to meet through this Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program. And so I want to ask you, John and Dennis. Now we'll start with Dennis. What was it that drew you to being a to becoming a Skinwalker Ranch Insider?
I think, initially I used to, when the show first came on, I kind of got pulled into it, but it was actually Travis that got me into it because I used to watch a show called Rocket City Rednecks.
Oh yes.
And if anybody that's familiar with the show knows that they would like build robots out of cardboard. I mean, just the craziest thing. But he was so fun to watch, and his dad and his brothers, I guess, were on there with him. And so I mean, I saw him, I was like, oh, he's on this show now, right? So that pulled me in initially, and then it's I guess I'm really good at jumping down rabbit holes, and it was like the biggest rabbit hole I could find, and it still is,
Right.
And so I just think that's what pulled me in, and then I think it was like last summer I saw something about the insiders and the page. So then I signed up for it, and then I saw about Phenomicon, and so it was just like this big funnel that led me into Skinwalker, and no matter how much I wanted to pull myself out of it, I kept getting drawn back in, and we all have so many theories
Right.
about the mesa. I mean, half the summer I've been looking up geological formation of the Uinta Basin.
Yeah.
How did it form? Like I would have never went down that rabbit hole. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of the great mysteries, I think. And for somebody like Brandon and Eric and all the people there, for them to care enough to spend their lives out there, their reputations, uh, you know, it's just amazing. And I feel like I'm part of the team on the Insiders,
Amen,
which I
brother.
know a lot of people feel like that.
Amen. I could not agree more. Awesome. Thank you so much. And John, how about you? What was it that drew you to checking out the Insider Program and ultimately, like Dennis, going down that rabbit hole?
Well, so this is going to be kind of funny. I, I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit this, but I've been embarrassed. I mean,
Well, you're a
interested.
Broncos fan, so it's normal for you.
Oh,
We won't go there.
I
now.
had to
Now
go
that they're
there.
up and recording, we're not going
Ooh.
to go there. No, I've known about Skinwalker Ranch for years. I'd read a couple of the books, all that stuff. I was pretty familiar with it. Well, I mean, I'm from an hour away, right? So, um, but so this is kind of funny. So when I heard that someone new had bought the ranch, I was a little, I kind of had a bad attitude about that. I thought, oh, this is some rich guy coming in. He's buying the ranch. He's just going to commercialize it. And it's going to be like Disneyland of Northeast Utah. And, I just kind of had this picture in my mind of like, oh man, this place that had so much value is now it's just going to go down the tubes and it's going to be horrible. And then I heard there was a TV show, and I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a horrible reality show. And then I even watched the show. And here's the really embarrassing part: the first season, the first time I saw the season, I kind of had that prejudicial attitude in my mind. So that set me up, and I'm like, these guys don't know what the hell they're doing. They're doing all, I was like criticizing everything. It was horrible. So then I heard about the Insiders program, and I'm like, oh yeah, here's more commercialization of the ranch, and this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And but then somehow, a crack opened up in my mind. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm wrong about that. So then I started reevaluating some things and started checking into it. And then I thought, this, what's happening isn't what I thought was happening. Like, these guys are serious about it. And Brandon is like a real dude that's serious about investigating the ranch. It's not an opportunity just for commercialization. So then I went back and I'm like, well, I'm going to join the Insiders now. So I did. And that was November of 2022. And immediately I was kicking myself. I'm like, why did I not join this before? Because, like the first day I joined, I hop in and there's Eric in Discord talking for hours and hours about stuff that's going on the ranch. And, it just blew my mind. And it's just gotten better, since then, finding out about Phenomicon and meeting you guys and other people and developing some relationships and, going down different rabbit holes on the Discord discussions. And it's been great. But that's kind of the funny story of how I
That's
ended up
really cool.
in the
Awesome.
Insiders.
I love that story, John, because I've never ever talked about it, but my attitude when I heard about the TV show was spot on identical. I'm like, because I too, I started off the very first time I remember hearing about Skinwalker Ranch was reading about it in a newspaper article. I think it was it was either the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News back in like '96 when they did the
Mhm.
first major, news story on it. And I remember thinking, wow, that's really interesting. And so I then saw the book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker, and I bought it back. This was like 2006 or thereabouts when I bought the book for it, and I read it, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is right here in Utah. And then I'm like, okay, where is this place? And I figured it out. I didn't know where it was specifically, but I figured it out. It was somewhere, around Vernal, Utah, kind of type area. And I'm like, okay, well, I remember hearing all kinds of stories about strange things and a lot of UFO sightings out there, but I never really thought anything of it. So when I heard they were doing a TV show of it, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna turn out like most of those UFO and paranormal ghost hunting shows where it's more about creating sensationalism and then debunking it and making everybody look foolish. And so I'm like, I don't know how this TV show thing is gonna work. And much to my surprise, after really seeing the first episode, I was kind of drawn in. I'm like, wow, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And I get into, finishing the first season and I'm like, holy cow, this is actually really different from any other show I'd seen out there that approaches this kind of a topic, where it's like they're actually using science as opposed to just simply going off of myth and legend. And they would address the myths and the legend, but they were still pushing in a scientific manner, which resonated more deeply with me because that's the approach that I prefer to take to stuff like this. And then, like Dennis and like you were saying, once that rabbit hole opened, man, I just jumped in. And
Mhm.
Roger and I went to the first Phenomenon, and that would have been what, 2021, Raj? Does that sound
Yeah.
about right? And I never would have thought I would have had a chance to actually meet Travis and Caleb and Dragon. And Roger can tell you the first night of Phenomenon in 2021, and it's nothing like what you guys got to experience last year. Because the first year of Phenomenon, especially on the first night, there was maybe what, Roger, maybe 300 people there at the most.
Right. Yeah.
And so I see Dragon walking, and of course, Dragon's always got that sidearm at his side, and he still had that scowl. And I'm like, oh man, so I'm trying to work up the courage to go over and say hi to him and ask him if I can get a picture with him. And so I did finally, and I found out he was like the coolest, the nicest guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, come on over." And so I'm like, "Raj, take a picture." And so it was like that was the beginning of me being able to, actually have the courage to walk up and introduce myself and say hello to all these guys. And the only one ironically enough, that I didn't get a chance to say hello to that first year of Phenomicon was Caleb. But everybody else, I got to walk up to them and shake their hand, and it's like, wow, here's the guys from the TV show. And the thing that struck me, and tell me, because all of you guys have met them as well, was I was so surprised to find out that they are just like what you see on the TV show in real life. That's who they are. So that tells you that, again, not only is the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch not a scripted show like so many of these other similar shows are that are out there, but these guys that are there, that are working there, that are members of the team, are regular guys just like the rest of us. They just happen to have a really interesting job that they do. And I was so impressed to find out, number one, how regular and normal they were, if that is such a term, and how approachable they were, and how down to earth, and just what genuinely nice guys they were. What Rod, we'll start with you. What was your first impression when you got to meet the guys from Skinwalker Ranch? What your image of them was on the TV show versus what you saw when you met them in person.
Oh yeah, typically because I think a lot of us have met what I would say celebrities or people that are more known, and depending on who that person is, it can be quite a different experience. You think when you see somebody on TV, you think in your mind like, I think this is how that person's going to be or how they're going to act. And so I was just kind of preparing myself when we first went and we met the team out there, that they would be kind of just, I guess, offstandish, not really wanting to talk. But I was blown away because it was quite the opposite. They were happy to answer questions. They had smiles on their face, and their personalities matched exactly what you saw on the show. I love Travis and his deep Southern accent, and he the way he talks is just amazing. And, just that Southern hospitality there. It was fun talking with Eric, he, I imagine Eric to be a very scientific guy and to, stick to facts and stuff, which he did. And, he was very, what I would say, Eric Bard, but he also, as we discovered, has this love of music and right. And that opened up conversations with him. Same thing with Bryant and, additionally Caleb. And for me, it was just really nice to get to know people. And even though they didn't know who we are, they were actually invested in finding out more about what we did, our podcast, and then talking about the show. So I was really impressed with all of them and continue to be impressed with them today.
Right on. Could not agree more. Dennis, how about you? What was your first impression when you got to meet the guys on the ranch?
The first person I met was Thomas,
Mhm.
and I was parking on the street. I shut my car door and I heard a door shut behind me, and it was him. And I had just driven up to the complex, and I go, hey, what are you doing here? It's like I was so shocked,
Right.
and he came over and we talked a minute, and I go, I gotta get a selfie. So,
Amazing.
we took a pic out in the parking lot, and it was so cool. But yeah, everybody was super, super nice, just like they are on the show. Um, I, I, I tried to stay away from, I only talked about music with Travis and with a couple of the other guys because let's see, with Jay Stratton, he was there, but I didn't want to ask anything about the ranch because I felt like they couldn't tell me anything. so I just talked about music and like guitars, and Travis seemed really happy just to talk about that too with me. But yeah, they were great. They were great.
John, how about you? Who was the first member of Skinwalker Ranch that you met when you were out at Phenomicon, and what were your first impressions?
See, now I'm trying to remember. I think the first person I actually met was Jay,
Really?
because I was looking for Michelle, and I met Michelle, and Jay was there. So then I met Jay, and then it was later I met the others. And I think that night I had dinner with uh Eric, and then later on saw Travis and Caleb, and I just ran into Caleb at the at the desk area, um at the ranch table. And then I don't think I talked to Dragon until like the last day. But yeah, there what's weird is, you see people on TV and on the internet, and it's weird to suddenly just see them in person. It's just jarring to, you see them for a long time. You see, many, many, many episodes of them on TV, and now they're just walking around. Like they just walk past you. Like that was, there goes Peter, there goes, Eric, so that was kind of weird. I don't think I learned anything surprising. I mean, it was interesting to see that Travis cusses far more in person. So and we all kind of suspected that, but when you're around, you're like, okay, the editors of that show are going to have a really tough time. They have that bleep button ready to go at any time. And then but I think the only one that hadn't been on the show much at all, I think by then was Jay. So that was the really surprising thing, is just how cool Jay is. I mean, uh, Jimm and we must have talked to them for hours, talking to Michelle and Jay, again, mostly about music. Because I
Yeah.
had the same idea. I thought these guys are answering the same ranch questions over and over and over, and they're probably kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go just chat about
That's
guitars.
it's
And
Yeah.
they're,
Exactly.
they're gonna
it's
talk,
funny that you
you know?
both mentioned that, because that's precisely how I was with Jay. But for me, meeting Jay, and Roger can tell you this, before Phenomicon last year happened, Roger and I were talking, who are we most excited about meeting? And for me, I was, hoping and praying that Jay Stratton was going to be there, because
Yeah.
I'd read so much about Jay, and I'd watched the stuff that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp had about him, the various interviews, and I just found him to be a really fascinating individual. And I'm like, man, if I could just have a chance to just shake his hand and just say hello, and thank him for his service to our country. And sure enough, Jay was there at Phenomicon, and like you guys, I'm thinking, okay, Jimm, don't be a fanboy. Whatever you do, just play it cool. He probably doesn't want to talk about his time with OSAP or ATIP or UAPTF. Probably, just I remember hearing that he was really into music and that he liked playing a guitar and that he was in a band with Travis. And so I'm like, well, okay, Jimm, you're an audio engineer and a music producer and a performer. That's what I do for a living. And so what better foot in the door opportunity to just kind of talk to Jay as a regular guy. And so when I met Jay, got to tip my hat to Michelle for giving me the opportunity to meet Jay. And Jay and I talked about music. We talked about guitars. We talked about, the band that him and Travis are in. Talked about, what some of the favorite music was that he had, coming up, and that's what we talked about. And that's, and Roger can tell you, whenever I'm with a group of musicians, Roger's like, okay, there he goes, Jimm's gone, because musicians are my people. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I'm my big thing is synthesizers and the technology, but I also love guitars. I can talk about any kind of guitar. I can talk about any kind of music, from the blues to metal to rock to hip hop and rap to country. I mean, my life is music. And so, you know, when I get around other musicians, I'm just like, yeah, these are my people. This is my tribe.
Yep.
And I found it so cool that Jay was just like me. He was just as much of a geek and a fan of music and the same kind of things that I was. And it was like, wow, it just made him more personable. He was already plenty personable. I mean, like you guys have said, Jay was so down to earth, so approachable. And I'm thinking, like, gosh, this is a guy that, you know, he worked in the Pentagon. He was the main guy. And it's like, wow, and he's actually here talking to, stupid
Mhm.
old me who's a nobody from some nondescript hamlet in upstate New York, and yet here I am talking with a guy that has probably seen and heard things that could fill volumes that would probably, like Pete Kelsey likes to say, turn your socks brown, right? So I was so meeting Jay was like absolutely one of the high points, if not the high point of my Phenomicon experience last year. And it's so cool to hear that both you, Dennis and John, had that same experience where your first kind of connection talking to Jay was not about, hey man, where's everything hidden? Where the bodies at? I mean, and it's like wow, Jay is just like us. He digs music. He
Mhm.
loves talking about Paul Reed Smith guitars. I mean, I'm sure you and him probably talked about that, right, Dennis? And
Yeah, yeah,
I'm,
a
and
little
I'm
bit.
talking about my Gretsch guitars, and Michelle turned her nose up. She's like, Gretsch, come on, give me a break. It's like, yeah, yeah, guilty. I love Gretsch, but it was just so cool but that's also how it was, like Roger said, with me and Eric. When I found out that Eric was really into music, and then to find out that Eric used the same music production software that I used, it was like, oh, here we go. And so Eric and I had a great time talking about the music software that we use, and then Eric played us a little sample of some of the music that he composed, right, Roger?
Yeah,
I'm
And
right off his
jealous.
cell
I've
phone. Yeah.
never heard any of it.
and it's fantastic. Eric, as you would imagine, is a extremely talented musician on top of everything else that he's able to do. And so I think that's so cool that the three of us, that was like our common way of being able to approach these guys was, hey, instead of like, hey, tell me what's going on out there at the ranch, is this really, and instead
Mhm.
it's like, so tell me, are you into more of the G&L strats or the fenders?
Yeah.
And
What
it's
amp
like,
are you using?
well, and it was so cool to kind of see Jay light up, and it's like, oh, Paul Reed Smith, and it's all these other great guitars that we're talking about. And it's like, yeah, that for me is what the experience is all about, is getting to know this person as a human being, not so much for the role that he's played or continues to play in this great mystery that we're also drawn into. It's nice to know that these guys that work out at the ranch are just like we are. They're just regular guys, and they are trying to do the right thing and making sure that we are asking the right questions and doing the right kind of investigations and experiments that are out there. So that's so cool to find out that we all kind of shared that that
Well,
that,
That's
that, that
funny.
similar thing.
the funny thing, Jim, is that just thinking about it, so you, John, Dennis, right, you guys all play musical instruments, and the I guess that Travis, Eric, Jay, even Pete Kelsey, right? You guys have that connection. Well, it's a little different for me, since I don't play a musical instrument. I love music, as Jim knows. Um, but it's great just to kind of relate one experience to is a couple years ago, had the chance to just an off chance to start talking with Caleb. I'm a big gaming fan, so I love World of Warcraft. I've worked for Blizzard Entertainment on their World of Warcraft teams. And just I love the development side. I love all the things that way. Um, and just happened to had a notebook that had a World of Warcraft symbol on it, and Caleb noticed that. And that led to a pretty long discussion with him about gaming. And you wouldn't think Caleb, right? Because he's like, he has cowboy hat, you'd think he's
Former
like, all right,
Marine.
like this Marine, but he actually plays video games just like me. And so that was a really like eye-opening for me just to sit down and share some of my passion about the gaming industry and swap ideas. So yeah, it was a little bit different in how I approached that, but again, there are so many common threads amongst all of them. And I even like talking to Eric Bard. I have some paranormal footage that I had captured. Just he was willing to look at it and give his opinion on it and like next steps and what to do to kind of authenticate it more. And then like Travis Taylor, I asked him if he would record a hello and say the phenomena that he always says, that the phenomena on the ranch. just because my son really loved him saying that, right? And he was willing to do it and made a little video on my cell phone and sent it to my son. So again, they're all great people.
Yeah,
That's
could
awesome.
not agree more. And yeah, Caleb is you know, Roger, we must have talked to Caleb for what, at least
Good
I
two
want to say
hours.
two and a half, and maybe even
Yeah.
close to 3 hours. That second year that we were at Phenomicon, and it was really yeah. I mean, just and to this day, you know, Caleb is just I mean, obviously I'm biased, but he's my favorite team member for a lot of reasons. Not just because Roger and I have gotten a chance to know Caleb, but I just love the integrity that Caleb has. And the great thing is that level of integrity permeates the entire team. Because Travis is cut from the same cloth, Eric is cut from the same cloth, Thomas and Dragon. These are all
Yeah.
men of, you know, fantastic. They possess great integrity, great moral character, and they are as transparent as their NDAs out there at the ranch and that they have with the History Channel allow them to be. And I haven't met Brandon Fugel or Uncle Jim yet, but I already know that Brandon and I share a great deal of common interest, particularly in music, because he's into the same kind of music that I am, and his favorite album of all time is my favorite album of all time. So, and Brandon's as much a big of a fan of 1980s movie culture and TV shows. I mean, you know, that's kind of like if I ever had a chance to sit down and talk with somebody like a Brandon Fugel or a Travis Taylor, I really don't think I'd talk a lot about the ranch. I'd probably, you know, be having this, you know, super geek discussion about Marvel superheroes and Star Wars and comic books and, you know, music and guitars and synthesizers and but that's just because I guess I approach the whole thing from as much to me it's as important to me to know that these guys that are out there doing this research are really just good people, decent human beings, and that goes farther with me than any degree of celebrity. And I'm pleased to say that that's what we have out there with every member of this team, from Brandon on down, including Jay and just everybody. It's and Pete Kelsey. I mean, these just are awesome guys. Not only are they fun to hang around, they're just good people. You know, at least that's been my experience, and that's what I'm sticking to. Whenever anybody asks me, you know, hey, what are these guys like? And it's like, well, they're just good people. They're
Mhm.
very intelligent. They're very focused on what it is that they're doing, and they're just, you know, you could not ask for a better group of people to be out there doing this kind of research in this kind of a environment. I can't imagine any other group of people that I would rather have out there trying to help us figure out these mysteries. And that's, I guess, that's the best way I can compress it down in my typical overly verbose loquacious. Talk
Well
about
put.
rambling, John.
Well put.
I am the rambler. There you go.
Can't top my rambling. You know, real quick, I wanted to say,
Yeah,
not only I agree with everything you said, but they were still in filming season during
right,
Phenomicon.
right.
So they were incredibly busy. But one thing I appreciated is they were very giving of their time. You know, there's hundreds of people there. Everybody wants to talk to them. Everyone wants pictures. Everyone wants autographs, like we do, right? But not never, especially with Jay. But you did not ever get the impression that they wished they were somewhere else, or if you were trying to
Right.
talk with them, they didn't. You know, they really enjoyed talking with people. You know, you kind of worry, or at least I would always kind of worry that you could wear out your welcome real quick,
Right.
and you know, they're going to be wishing they were somewhere else. But that was
Yeah.
not the case, especially when you start talking about music. You know, they're just chatting away and hanging
Yeah.
out. You know, standing outside eating hot dogs. You know, out by
Yeah.
the food trucks or whatever, and it's just, you know, they're just, it was cool. It was
Yeah.
very good of them to give that much of their time
Absolutely.
during filming season. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, folks, to kind of just wrap up our little detour here about the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program, As Roger talked about earlier, there's two different levels of membership that you can look into for the Insider program. And to start off with, you can actually try it out for free for 1 full week to see if it's something that you like. And if you decide you want to stick around, you can go to a monthly subscription, which you can cancel anytime, which is a mere $10 a month. Or you can go to the yearly subscription, which I want to say is what, guys, about $99 or something like that.
I think so.
So you end up
Yeah,
saving a little bit of
right.
money in the long run by going for the yearly subscription. And the cool perk that you get about signing up for a yearly subscription is you get an exclusive Skinwalker Ranch Insider t-shirt, which even I don't have because, well, I opted to do the monthly thing, and I'm still doing the monthly thing after going on
Oh,
3-4
yeah.
years now. But I'm okay. I don't, it does, I'm okay with that. I'm happy doing that. But you can go and find out more about it by going to skinwalker-ranch.com. And we're in the process right now of testing out a brand new platform for Skinwalker Ranch Insiders, where we're all kind of grouping together, where you can have access to all these great things like the live stream cameras on the property, have access to these insider exclusive Q&A sessions with the team members, the famous chips and salsa sessions that they do with insiders, and access to spreadsheets and data and anomaly videos that are shot, that are captured from people that are watching the live stream. It's just, and again, I cannot emphasize enough the amazing community that you would be a part of in joining the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Program. So check it out today, folks, skinwalker-ranch.com, and come and join me and John and Roger and Dennis, and come and say hi to us. We'll be happy to see you there. So with that, gentlemen, let's talk about how far we've come from season 1 of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch to where we are today, where we are just a mere couple of days away from the debut of season 5 of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And we kind of talked about, John, you kind of got us started by saying that initially you were a bit standoffish about the show and kind of weren't sure what to take, what to make of it. And so looking back, I want to ask the three of you, what would you say were some of the, maybe pick 2 or 3 moments in particular between the first season and the 4th season, where you felt there was something significant that was discovered on the ranch, or that was revealed in some of the experiments that they did? What were some of the big, OMG or even WTF moments that you guys have witnessed going on since the first season of the show? And John, we'll start with you this time.
Well, strangely enough, even though I think I watched the first episode or two and then stopped watching originally, so I didn't really give it a chance. But then when I started watching it again, I think the first WTF moment I had was, when they got the tin cans and the EMF detectors, or the tri-field meters, whatever it was that they stuck in there to get some directionality to their sensors, when they first discovered something above the ranch. That blew my mind, because that can't happen. The things they were detecting, as far as we know, can't be there. But there's clearly something there, right? So everything, I think my favorite things throughout the seasons have all been related to whatever is above the triangle. There's clearly something above the ranch that is measurable, whether it's just the tin cans and the tri-field meters, or something launching rockets or dropping stuff through it, or was it season, I forgot which season they all run together. Which was the season where they sent the instruments through it? Was it the end of season 3 or season 4?
I think that was season
But
2, actually.
they lost. No, I'm talking about the time when they actually lost, like they actually lost. They were able to record lost time.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was
okay.
That one, again, can't happen. It can't happen, but it did happen. So that's fascinating to me. So I think that's the most interesting thing to me. And and then the guys with the telescopes, when they would point them to a certain star, the star in their database disappears. when they're pointing to something through the triangle, but when they point it elsewhere, it acts fine. That can't happen, but it did happen.
But it did happen.
So
Eating right
that
off the
type of
database.
thing just is so fascinating. It's like, this can't be happening, but it's clearly happening. So what about physics? What about reality do we not understand yet that's going to make this make sense? You know, they're hopefully we'll figure this out, but each season I think they get a little bit closer, they get a little bit more data, and maybe someday that will get us an answer to that question. But I think that's my favorite thing, but there's too many to choose from.
Those are excellent examples, John. And I have to kind of touch upon something that Travis Taylor said. And Roger, I think it was actually was it during the first Phenomicon or the second Phenomicon where Travis used the phrase that his perception of reality was broken. And he was talking about how the upcoming season we were going to see things that just, would shatter our view of what we thought reality was. And bear in mind that, the things that we've seen, as you guys are pondering what your OMG or WTF moments have been watching the docuseries, imagine what that's got to be like for the team themselves to be on the ranch experiencing these things in real time firsthand. Because for us, like when I tell you guys what my moments were, and I'm interested to see if you guys pick any of the same moments that I had. But for me, it's like, how is this possible? This is the realm, we are literally in the realm of science fiction and comic books, but yet the data is 100% showing that that's the direction that this is headed. This isn't just simply them saying, well, we kind of think that there's this big old hole in the sky and there's, it's not, that may be the way that Travis sounds when he talks about it, but he's not saying that without having data to form that hypothesis to lead him in the direction that he takes us when that moment of reality, for whatever those moments are for each of you, when that moment of reality either gets shaken or gets completely shattered. So that's my 2 cents on that. So Dennis, what were some of the moments for you where you were like, I didn't just see that?
I'm kind of aligning with John a little bit when it comes to the star databases disappearing out of the telescopes. I think that was, to me, that was crazy. And combined with that, the International Space Station getting blocked out last season. Remember it, like once it got across the triangle, it picked it back up. And before it was there, it picked it up. It made no sense. Like John said, it shouldn't have done that, but it did. I think that, and going back in time, the cow that died back in season 1 or 2, it might have been 2. And then later on they pick out, something, a UAP was above it in the sky. Right. Nobody saw it at the time. They definitely picked up radiation, I think, some type of radiation there. Mm-hmm. So that was, and all the other cows went to the other end of the field. Mm-hmm. Just, biosensors is amazing on that ranch, and at the first season 1 or 2, they had some llamas or something. We never, and they got attacked. Alpacas. Yeah. And we've never seen much more about it because I guess there's so many other predators, that they can't just be putting like pretty animals everywhere and having them eaten by wolves, Yeah,
they actually followed up on that particular one at Phenomicon, if I'm not mistaken, right, Raj? And turns out that what was attacking those alpacas in the first season were just a pack of wild dogs or res dogs, like feral dogs. Right. That because that whole area surrounding the ranch out there is reservation land, and so there's a lot of domesticated dogs that just they're kind of, open
Right.
range, free
Right.
range dogs that just, kind of pick up their carnal instincts, and they just form these things, and they just came onto the property and saw an opportunity, and they attacked these alpacas. So it wasn't anything. But they actually
Yeah.
talked about the team talked about how frustrated they were because the way that it was edited, that particular episode was like this big mystery, and it's like, oh, what was it? Was it the Skinwalker? And it's like, no, it was just res dogs, and they just never resolved that when they came back to future episodes. So, but yeah, I was of the same thought of, gosh, what kind of strange things are happening out there when they bring these new animals on the
Hmm.
ranch. And so yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So really, I mean, the manipulation of the computers, all that stuff just drives me crazy. The cell phones, when Caleb's phone just, you know,
yep,
going crazy. And he said, and at Phenomenon, he said it didn't matter if it was an iPhone, if it was an Android, if it was
right,
his phone, if it was everybody's phones was doing that.
right,
So, I mean, and that's crazy,
Yep.
you
yep.
know.
Completely agree.
Oh,
Roger,
can
how
I
about
add
you?
one more to mine? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, no. Go
I
ahead.
just thought of one
Go
more
ahead.
that was a total WTF
Awesome.
moment. Sorry, Roger. I didn't mean to.
Okay.
What was something Dennis said reminded me. The episode where their own voices were being echoed back to them through their
Right.
equipment,
Yes.
Yeah.
because they said later they took all their microphones off, everything was gone, and they could still hear the voices. And they had people walk without microphones outside into the field, and you could still hear them clearly being through.
Yeah.
That
Amplifying.
can't happen.
That can't happen.
There's no microphone there, and it was like somebody was surveilling them and
Yeah.
then playing their audio back, but doing it without normal electronic means. It was just picking them up wherever they were and then broadcasting it back to them through their electronics. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I was like, okay. Well, at first I thought, well, there must be open microphones somewhere.
Mhm.
But I
Right.
still, when I watched the show, I still thought it was interesting. But later hearing them say in the Insiders program, no, we had the microphones turned off. We had people walking away. You could still hear them clear as a bell.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
just nuts. Sorry.
Absolutely.
No, you're
No,
on.
no,
You're
no.
you're
That's
on,
that's
no doubt.
yeah. You're spot on, man. Way to bring that out. Roger, what are some of your moments?
So man, there's so many, it's really hard to choose. Um, I think one of my, I have three. The top one is where they bring the rabbi on and he reads the prayer that they record, but as he's reading that, they have a FLIR camera out there and it records almost an immediate temperature drop right in the doorway there, I think of Homestead 2.
A
Um,
significant temperature
yeah,
drop.
significant drop. And like it's unexplainable how him reading a prayer would correlate to something that, because there wasn't like, if you looked at the surrounding and they showed the surrounding area, um just having right there a significant drop in temperature, and specifically on Homestead 2, right when that prayer is being read, like again, super unexplainable. Like how, I mean, is it a portal? Because the prayer is supposed to open portals, is what they say. So I thought that was really interesting. And then they decided to redo that experiment and were able to get the same type of thing to happen again, not to the extent of when he was reading it live, but they still recorded more temperature drops there. So that was really interesting to me. And then the next one is where they were dropping those bottles out, right, with the GPS and things like that. And after they, were going through and looking at the data of all of it, it seemed to be either bouncing off something within the triangle, and landing just where these things should just drop and hit the ground. They were being redirected elsewhere. And like, that's just really unexplainable. And I thought like that is like, being up there and seeing it and then putting that data together and show where like this is where like we had the recording and then boom, it's like pushed off, and it all has to do with that triangle area, which is just phenomenal to me. So I'm definitely looking forward in season 5 to learn more about what's going on in the triangle. Um, and then, gosh, there's so many other things, but I think I have to go back to just that loss of time when they put the balloon up there, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman that came back who owns the company. He couldn't explain that loss of time, and it was just like a quarter of a nanosecond. But I guess Travis was like, "This is huge when you actually look at this is not possible. You
Right.
can't lose time like that." And yet something created that, right? Bringing into quantum mechanics and quantum theories here, that just blew my mind. That like, how is this even happening? How did they,
Right.
what is up there? Oh, and I was just gonna say the one last thing is this was so amazing. So when they thought that they saw something up in the triangle and it was night, and they shined a laser on it, and they showed how the laser stopped going through, it actually hit something.
Yep.
And then they showed that the light of the laser was being split when they were shining it. I'm like, and you look up there and there's absolutely nothing in the sky, and yet that laser was stopped and the streams were split. So I mean, mind blown.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
Ditto.
Roger, you the last one you touched upon there was one of my biggest WTF OMG moments from the docuseries is that I think it's in season 3 where Caleb is shining that green laser up through the triangle, and like you said, all of a sudden the beam just like gets shorter. It's like it's reflecting, like there's like if you shine a flashlight on a out into open space, and then all of a sudden it comes across something with a hard surface, it kind of you can tell that the beam is interrupted by something. Well, a laser is a more focused beam of light than a flashlight is, right? And to see that happen, to see a laser which should conceivably go up into the sky to the extent that we won't be able to see where the end of that laser is, and then to see it seemingly, be reflected off of some unseen force or unseen object that's there in the sky, was kind of like, did that really happen? And then, like you said, Roger, to see the beam bend, what causes a beam of light, specifically a laser, to bend? Um,
Yeah, to split.
and then to have it split like that, and to have it all caught on camera from multiple angles. So we know that this wasn't just simply a trick of, well, it just looked like that from the perspective that the camera was at. No, there's no question that that laser that Caleb was shining up was, being shortened by something and then bent and split. And then in season 4, when we have the moment where the blob, as they've come to call it, appears after the rocket test. And it's interesting because at the end of season 3, when that one rocket blows up, like within seconds of it getting off the launch pad, it gets up to about that 35 foot, height, and then it just exploded. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if something is there that maybe just, zapped it. And then the following season, when they're doing a similar experiment where the rocket goes up, and once again, the rocket explodes once it gets up about 35 feet off the ground. And they play it back with those high speed cameras where you can see that it gets up there and just boom, it explodes. And the interesting thing was that the motor didn't, it exploded. What was it, on the side, if I'm not mistaken? The rocket motor exploded out the side of the engine. And it's like, then we see the outline of what looks like this. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, they describe it as the blob, but to me it looks like some kind of object that the smoke of the rocket is just kind of barely, you're able to make out the outline of maybe the bottom of it. And then a few moments after that, and if I'm not mistaken, guys, didn't Thomas say it was within 7 to 10 minutes after that rocket exploded was when the helicopter showed up?
Yeah.
This Chinook helicopter shows up out of nowhere. And then, it comes in at a really low altitude, right over precisely where they're doing the testing. And the thing that makes that so significant is that anytime they are launching rockets out at the ranch, they issue what is called a NOTAM. That's NOTAM, and that stands for Notice to Airmen. And they have to file that with the FAA anytime they are conducting experiments like sending up rockets or shooting lasers up that could potentially pose a threat to any aircraft that are flying over the airspace in the vicinity directly over and around Skinwalker Ranch. So they file this NOTAM, which means that no aircraft is allowed to go into that airspace. And yet, rather coincidentally, and Roger, as we like to say, there are what? No coincidences, right?
Right.
By this strange coincidence, within minutes of when this amazing thing happens and they capture this stunning footage of something seemingly, this seemingly invisible cloaked object is, only 30 some odd feet off the ground. All of a sudden, this helicopter comes flying in over the ranch with all of its lights turned off. And Caleb has talked to us about how, in order to do that, they have to be using night vision. And so the danger of operating a helicopter with just night vision, it comes with its own inherent risk and peril. But it's kind of foolish if you are knowingly flying into an area where they're shooting off rockets, where just simply the engine blast from when a rocket lifts off, to say nothing of the trail that it has, along with the beacons that are on it. That's going to be blinding to anybody that's looking at that through a night vision set, particularly if you're flying an aircraft and something so relatively low to the ground like a helicopter. So the fact that the helicopter shows up rather conveniently so quickly after witnessing something so extraordinary, and then, as we know, the helicopter flies behind where this object allegedly is positioned above the triangle, and it momentarily disappears. And so I remember seeing that on the show thinking, did I just see what I thought I saw? And I'm like, no, it just had to be the way that the camera angle was. And then we find out, sure enough, through the Skinwalker Ranch Insider Q&As and stuff, that that helicopter flew behind whatever that invisible object was, and while it was flying behind it, it disappeared from view from the people that were looking at that angle on the ground. Now, to Eric, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you guys were watching, I think it was on Jeff Freeman's podcast. Got to give a big shout out to JFree906, our good friend Jeff Freeman. Caleb Caleb and Pete were on there about a week ago, and I think Caleb was talking about how Eric had a different perspective from the ground, and so he saw the helicopter the entire time, well, from where his vantage point was. But from where Caleb and I think Travis and Thomas were, and the film crew, that helicopter disappeared for, I mean, granted, only maybe a second or two, but still it disappeared. Which, why would that? How would that happen? And the answer is, I can't say what the answer is, but the impression that I was left with was, yes, there is some kind of unknown object that is invisible to the naked eye and invisible to all other methods of detection, that was situated there above the ranch, in that triangle area. And again, guys, that's the realm of science fiction, things that we only see in Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel movies, right? And but yet here's something very similar playing out in our reality, in our real world. And to me, that was the moment where the combination of that laser bending and reflecting off of something hidden in the sky, presumably, And the appearance of of that blob when the rocket blew up there, and I think it was the second or third episode of season 4. Um, those were the moments where my reality was just gone. And it was like, holy cow, did I actually see what I thought I saw? And it turns out that what I thought I saw was apparently what I thought I saw. And again, put yourself in the shoes of Caleb or Thomas or Dragon or Travis that were there, that actually witnessed it happen, and imagine what it must have done for their perception of reality. And that's what really kind of, sends chills down my spine. And I don't know about what those moments were like for you, but my reality in that moment was like, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know how to rationally explain these things away, because all the data, all the regular questions that you would answer, that you would ask to, for want of a better term, explain away, debunk, rationalize, whatever term you want to use, none of them answered the question. And that's one of the many things that for me draws me into this phenomena that we call Skinwalker Ranch, because it's all of that and so much more, including all the things that you guys mentioned, John and Dennis, where you talk about the time dilation or the time slippage. That is significant. It's only what was it, like 0.25 seconds or something like that?
It was
But
really short,
and most people are going to look at that and say, so what? That's a fraction of a second. But when you look at what the nature of time is and what our understanding of time is, how is that accountable? And the answer is, we don't know.
Right.
And that's what so many of the people that want to dismiss all this as just hooey and nonsense, don't really take the time to honestly look and pay attention to what the experiments are that they're doing, and why the data that's coming back is so groundbreaking, and why it's so, you know, I think we always hear Eric and Travis saying this, but every time we get a result, it just brings up more questions than answers. It's like the more we learn, the less we know. And I don't know why, but I kind of find that fascinating. Because for me, I'll pose this question next to you guys. What what does all this do for your own view and your own perception of reality? And has this changed watching some of these things unfold on the ranch, and learning some of the things that you've learned about it? How has that changed your view of the world around you, the view of the universe, or just your view of maybe our place in this whole grand scheme of things as human beings? And Dennis, we'll start with you.
How has it changed my perception? I, you know, like I said, I will jump down that rabbit hole real quick.
That's my man right
And
there.
I've always, like, my backstory is like I'm a really big Roswell fan.
Mhm.
Like anything to do with Roswell, I love. So I'm already at that acceptance of like we're not alone type thing. But the significance, I think, in the time that you just mentioned is not so much the amount of time that's lost or changed. It's just the fact that something can change it.
Right.
I mean, we may have caught
Oh,
a little smidgen right there of what can happen, but say that's just the edge of what's possible. You know, I go back to there was a movie about a pocket watch when I was a kid. And
somewhere in time.
when you clicked it, everything stopped. And you could, except for the person that had the watch, right?
Mm.
So in my way, there's a way it's like if an anomaly could do something like that, there's your multiple dimensions. So I do feel like there's multiple dimensions. The triangle, I'm not so sure if it's an object there or if it's something that cloaks objects that's there.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
people could be coming and going all the time, or situationally. So yeah, I think it's definitely opened my eyes to multiple things, because that's one thing you can say about the ranch. There's way more than one thing going on out there.
Oh, without
Mm.
question. Without
you
question.
know,
Yeah.
and like John Alexander had said about the ranch, it's like it knows what you're going to do before you do it.
Mhm.
And it's tough to beat somebody when they're 3 moves ahead of you.
Right.
you know,
That's
so yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of where I stand on it.
Excellent. Roger, how about you? How has it changed or has it changed your view of life and this thing that we call reality?
Um, it actually hasn't changed my view. As you know, I've had paranormal experiences ever since I was a child, and so I've always been open to things that other people have not experienced or have not seen. And so watching something like The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch actually is refreshing because it just reinforces my belief and helps me, I guess, sleep better at night, knowing that other people have these types of observations, that things that are supposedly not supposed to happen, they actually do happen, and we've been able to capture some of that. And so I guess it's not necessarily a paradigm shift or change. It's just the reaction of like, I'm finally glad that we're stepping in the right direction and we're acknowledging uh, things that we wouldn't in the past, things that have been considered taboo or wouldn't talk about, that are now more mainstream and out in the open. And I don't feel as alone being able to share some of those things and really watching that and having other people say like, oh yeah, I see the same thing you're seeing, right? It's just fascinating to me and just makes me even more, you know, like Dennis said, jumping down that rabbit hole and trying to dig up more information and then having all the questions like, okay, I can't answer this, so I've got to dig further. I've got to dig further. It's exciting.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Everything you just said, Raj. I think one thing that we cannot overlook is the fact, at least in my case, 7 years ago, I never would have been having any of these conversations with anybody other than maybe Roger. I was always a believer that there is life elsewhere in the universe. I've always believed that multiple dimensions are very likely a possibility, but I never really went much farther than, oh, it's kind of something to think about from time to time. And now here we are. Just last year, we had this historic congressional hearing where we had three uh, men of high character and integrity testify before Congress and the American people of extraordinary things that they witnessed. Speaking specifically of Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor, where they saw these things and they were, present when truly amazing UAP events happened. And David Grush, the stuff that he came forward with has the potential that if any of it is verified and verifiable and proven to be true, it's going to turn everybody's world upside down. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be left having those moments, those existential ontological shock moments of, I've not been prepared for news like this. And but what I think is fantastic is what you kind of touched upon, Roger, is that now those conversations are happening with greater frequency and in venues that they've never historically taken place in, um, as evidenced by that congressional hearing last year with Grush and Graves and Fravor. So I think that's a very great thing that's come out of all this, and we're going to touch upon that before we wrap things up. But before we get there, I want to ask John the same question I asked of Dennis and Rogers. John, what has it done for you? Has it in any way changed your perception of the way you view the universe or the world around you or reality? What is what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say a little bit, but it's more because the ranch is just one rabbit hole that I've gone down the past few years.
Right,
But
right.
what's interesting is that they're all connected. There's the ranch and that type of stuff, and then there's been this other rabbit hole I've pursued of like, what is consciousness? Is consciousness fundamental? The Donald Hoffman and Bernardo Kastrup, Thomas Campbell sorts of ideas about maybe reality, the very fabric of reality is not what we think, and maybe consciousness is what's fundamental, and everything else arises from consciousness, and
Right.
that leads to me reading books on near-death experiences, and that leads to reincarnation, and like scientists from the University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies and some of their research, and on it goes. Remote viewing, does it work? If it does work, why does it work? The answer to all of this seems to be related. It's all connected. It's like there is something about our reality that is not what we expect. Like I think we fundamentally misunderstand reality. I don't know if we know what the answer is, but I think it is much, much stranger than anyone expects. And what we're seeing on the ranch and on the TV show is a little piece of that. Each experiment that they run that ends up producing something that can't happen but just did, that's this other reality poking in and saying, check this out. Maybe you're ready for this. What do you think about this? I'm going to make a UAP appear in the sky, or I'm going to make light bend when it hits this thing, or I'm going to make lasers split in the midair, or I'm going to make LiDAR reflect differently in this space where there's nothing, whatever it is. I'm going to make some lights appear in the sky off in space, following sidereal motion, the motion of the stars that we can't do. So that clearly didn't come from us. I think it's something messing with us to some extent. Because think about like the history of our entire oral and written history is filled with stories of these little trickster spirits or entities that mess with us, and they take innumerable varieties of forms, but it's that same kind of idea. It's like they're always messing with us. They're just toying with us, and I think that there's something there that is doing exactly that. And I think it's happening at the ranch too. It's part of this whole thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what its purpose is. I don't know if it has a purpose, but it just seems like there's something out there messing with us, and the ranch is part of it, and it's fun to watch. I hope we figure out, a little bit more about it. I don't know that we ever will. I'm worried I might die of old age, and we're season 42 of Secret of Skinwalker.
I don't know, man. Jacques
We
Vallée is
still-
still kicking. I mean, look at Jacques Vallée. He's still around,
Yep.
and he's still
Yep.
kicking. But yeah, no,
Yep.
I think those entities that love messing with you are called Raiders fans. But no,
I agree
and
wholeheartedly.
bunch of tricksters, right? Bunch of scalawags. But no, I think you touched upon something really good there, John, when you mentioned consciousness. And Roger and I have talked about this before in some of our previous episodes. I actually, with everything that I've been able to learn and what I've researched over the last several years, that I've kind of gone down this Skinwalker Ranch rabbit hole with you guys, is that I've come to the belief, and it's just my own belief. I don't have any data to back it up. It's just my belief, my faith, if you will, that I think that if we learn anything out of all this, I think one of the things that we learn is going to be eventually that what we look for as signs of life in the universe, that maybe we're using the wrong standard. That maybe, here's SETI down in New Mexico sending these powerful radio pulses out into space. And we know how long it takes radio signals to get to certain parts of the universe, just like we know how long it takes light to travel from certain parts of the universe. So we have this idea that life, what we're going to define as life, something like bacteria, right? That's life. Or intelligent life, something that, has the ability, it has self-awareness, it's sentience. It can look like us or it's not going to look like us, but we just have this clearly defined, or at least a lot of people I think have this clearly defined idea of what quote unquote life is, or what intelligence is in the universe. And I know this is going to sound really rich coming from a Raiders fan, because we're not supposed to be too rich in the intelligence department historically, and I know a lot of my friends would agree with that, right, John? But the
I look
point that
for
I'm
seal.
the point that I'm making is I think, in all seriousness, uh, I think we're going to find eventually that consciousness is very likely the predominant life form in the universe. Um, and I say that because my own religious and my own spiritual beliefs tell me that our spirit, our soul, our life force, our energy, whatever you want to call it, and whatever culture you come from, that part of us, the thing that makes us uniquely us, I think that that lives beyond what we term physical death. I think that there's a part of us that continues to live on, part of our intelligence, all the knowledge that we learn, all the love that we experience, all the love that we have in our hearts. I think we take that with us when we progress to whatever it is that's after this life, after this 3D physical life that you and I and everybody watching this lives in, this collective reality, if you will. I think that that consciousness, that spirit, that soul, that life force, that energy, that essence of who you are, I think every living soul in the universe, whether it's human or non-human, has something similar that we would call a consciousness. And I think once we figure out how to identify that, how to recognize that, I think we're likely to find out that that consciousness, whatever it is, I think that that is going to, we're going to learn that that's the predominant form of life in the universe. And I think we're going to find out that if we find that out, we are absolutely not at all alone. And we're likely to find out that there is literally life in that consciousness form around us all the time. We can't see it, but it's an energy. And it would make sense when I just got done reading this great book with the Skinwalker Ranch Reader Group, by Mike Ricksecker, called A Walk in the Shadows, talking about, it's a book about shadow people. And one of the segments one of the chapters in the book talks about how human beings have this toroidal energy field around them, which is why when you get around certain people, you have this where you will say, I don't like the vibe coming out of that guy. Or, wow, I don't know what it is, but I really find something, really fascinating about this person. And we can sense energy. We can sense types of energy as human beings. And so if we can sense that there's energy, different kinds of energy around us, and if we can emanate certain types of energy as human beings, why would consciousness be any different if consciousness is presumably some other form of energy, or maybe it is the native energy, if you will, in the universe? Maybe it is that missing thing that binds the universe together that they're looking for. Maybe that dark matter that's out there is consciousness. Maybe we are that dark matter. And I know you guys are probably going, Jim, did you before you so I
No,
apologize
no.
if that's going, you know, uh the Raider fans talking way over his head, but that's kind of what your comments made me think about, John, is I really in the last little bit have taken a great interest in that topic of consciousness. And I've had some of my own experiences that I think are consciousness related that have really driven that point home to me, where I really feel that whatever the answers are, if there are any answers to be found to any of this mystery, on Skinwalker Ranch regarding UAPs, UFOs, what have you, I really genuinely think that consciousness and frequency play an essential role in that. And what that role is, I can only begin to imagine. but I think you touched upon that when you mentioned that, John. So thank you for clicking that switch on my brain that made me think of that.
Yep,
And apologies to all you viewers for
100%.
having to listen to that.
I 100% agree. That was great. I think you're right. And notice, tying it back into Grush and his testimony, notice that he and people in his group are very careful never to say extraterrestrial.
Yes,
They say non-human
exactly.
and I think they do that on purpose, because I think maybe they already know, or at least suspect, that some of this stuff is from here. It's
Yeah.
just not something we can normally detect. But there is that possibility that, we share this planet with some other stuff that we just can't see. We can't detect with our senses yet. We haven't figured out how to reliably know that it's there. And maybe it's because we don't know how to detect consciousness, if that's what
Exactly.
it is. Right. It's, maybe it's like when we learned about electromagnetic waves and then figured out ultraviolet and infrared, and now we've developed instruments to detect that. Maybe
Precisely.
someday we'll figure out how to detect consciousness, if it's this other real thing that exists.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll start seeing this stuff. I don't know.
Completely agree. You're now you're getting me excited, John. I this
I
is
know you kind of
exactly
wound up.
this is the exactly the kind of conversation I was kind of hoping we'd get into, because it opens up so many possibilities. And talk about rabbit holes. I mean, that's an even bigger rabbit hole that and that's why Roger and I would love to get like Shannon DeSalvo to come on and join us sometime, because she's actually studying consciousness. That's one of the things that she's professionally pursuing, is learning about consciousness. And she's been to like the Monroe Institute, and I would just love to listen to her uh, insights and perspectives on some of the things that she's learned about in her pursuits. But I really another thing you just said, John, where when David Grush, and if you remember, even I think even Jay, when I heard him talking to other people at Phenomicon last year, he also never said extraterrestrial. He always, tried to use that nondescript term, and I think that there's a reason for that, and I think obviously, because quite frankly, I'm not convinced that a lot of people, maybe even somebody like a Jay Stratton or Travis Taylor or David Grush, they may genuinely not know, but at the risk of not lumping all your eggs in one basket, as they say, as so many people want to do, they want to jump on that extraterrestrial bandwagon. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. That's not wrong at all. But I'm saying, for the people that say that's the first and the only and the most likely explanation to all of this, I'm not convinced. I think that it's a far more complex issue than just saying it's some extraterrestrial intelligence, some extraterrestrial race coming here from outside of our planet to here. I mean, quite obviously, I say yes, that's very much a very real possibility. But is it a is it the only explanation? I say no. And B, is it the most likely? I also say no. I don't think it is, because it could be something exactly like we've been talking about, John. It could also be a number of other things. These things that we hear called some people refer to them as ultra terrestrial or crypto terrestrials, which is a intelligent race of beings that have always been native to this planet, or at least been here an awful long time, right alongside us, but have managed to stay largely hidden from society because of their technology. Um, so it could be something like that. It could be some breakaway civilization that, going clear back to the days of Atlantis. Maybe it's something that's an offshoot of that, because we hear of how one of the things about Atlantis, if you believe that Atlantis was a real thing, they apparently allegedly had amazing and astounding technology back in those ancient days. Or it could be, some, I think this is one of the least likely explanations to all this, but some people say, well, it could be some really wealthy Elon Musk kind of guy that, for, you know, decades has just unlocked the secret technology. And I'm like, well, okay, but how does that explain all the sightings going back to the days of the petroglyphs and the sightings from the 1800s? Uh, and there's a lot of similarities between accounts that are in the Hindu scriptures that go back, tens of thousands of years, if not longer, that very much mirror some of the things that we're seeing today that we're capturing on video. So I think that again, the whole it's a far more complex issue, I think, than a lot of people are willing to admit. And I still think that whatever it is, and there may be many there may be, and like just like we see at Skinwalker Ranch, there's the trickster element in play at Skinwalker Ranch. There's incidents of classic poltergeist phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch, and then we see UAPs, we see UFOs, we see, we hear these stories that Chris Bartell has told about these strange, large wolf prints and these other accounts from Native Americans in the area that talk about the legends of the Skinwalkers. I mean, it's literally, all these things that are there, this multifaceted phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm not at all opposed to the idea of some of it potentially being extraterrestrial at all. In fact, I think it would be cool. But I also just think that there's enough to say, well, let's not put everything under that category. Let's
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
let's maybe keep our minds open, because it may be something that we haven't even begun to even imagine of what it could be. And I think for me, that's the approach that I try to take, is just try to keep an open mind, is just say, okay, if the evidence is pointing us that it's extraterrestrial, then okay, let's go wherever the data and the experiences that back up the data. Let's pay closer attention to that, and still even then maintain an open mind, because even if we catch a glimpse of it, how much of it are we really going to be able to see to make a proper diagnosis of what it truly is? And that is the question I don't think any of us can answer. And there I go again. Sorry, guys.
No, we can talk about that for hours.
Yeah,
Just that topic.
yeah. Dennis, I see you going. I see you're kind of there, like, whoa, why am I here with these guys? These guys are nuts.
No, I'm all about the multiple veils that
Yeah.
are there, that are here. There's it's to think about multiple dimensions, and us having a physical dimension versus other dimensions not being physical
Right.
is what kind of blows my mind. It's like I realize I could be, like, right next to me there could be another dimension. I mean, I get that, but it can't be the same physical dimension that we are, because we can't touch it, and we can't see it, but we know it's there. So I mean, I'm right there in the phenomenon with y'all, but I got no idea what's going on. I mean,
Same.
and in a way, I don't ever, in a weird way, I don't ever want Skinwalker to be solved.
I kind of feel the same way too. It's hard to explain, but I get what you mean there.
Because I love it. I mean, I love trying to figure it out, and once it's figured out, I'd be like, oh, what do I do now?
It's like learning the magician's trick.
Yeah.
Right.
It's way
Yeah.
more fun to not know the trick.
To not know it.
It's not fun anymore.
I know. It's weird. It's kind of like weed. It used to be fun when it was illegal. Now it's legal. It's not fun anymore. Sorry.
Well, living in Utah, we wouldn't know anything about that, would we, Roger?
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
So, guys, let's talk about season 5. Season 5 is just it's just what, it's 3 or 4 days away. So let me ask you
How
guys,
exciting.
what are some things that you would like to see happen? Maybe some things that would carry over from season 4. What are some things that you're hoping to see and that you would like to see coming up in season 5? And John, we'll start with you.
I think a lot of it goes back to what is above the triangle, and we saw from the preview, they're doing more of the drone flights and stuff like that, and clearly something goes haywire.
Right.
I want to find out more about that. But that's the biggest thing for me is there's a lot of stuff that's interesting on the show. Don't get me wrong, but the most interesting things to me are the physical, repeatable things. Some of the stuff isn't repeatable. They're just like, well, that was really freaking weird. What does that mean? I don't know. And then it never happens again. But the triangle, it's like there's something that just is there, and they can test anytime they want. It's like, yeah, it's there. There's something there. So that for me, I kind of want to get some answers there, or not answers at least, but some more data. Like what other experiments can they run that would give us a little more clarity about what this thing is? Like, is there a shape to it? Can they characterize its behavior a little more? Can they characterize the behavior of things going through it? Like, I kind of have wondered, like, is it like a non-Newtonian fluid? Do you remember those YouTube videos of non-Newtonian fluids? It's like where they fill like a pool with this stuff, and you can push your hand slowly through it just like it's water. But if you go across it really fast, you can run across it, because if you hit it fast, it becomes a solid almost. But if you go slow, it stays a liquid. And it kind of made me think of that as like, if something's flying through it slow like a bird, it's fine. But if something goes fast like a rocket, it experiences a lot more resistance, right? But I've been like, is that kind of that's how it's behaving? But then what about the loss of time about instruments going through it and all of that? So that to me, I think, is, if they can figure that thing out, or at least get some more data, I would be ecstatic. But also, like, what I would really like for season 5 is for them to get a way to freaking drill into that mesa successfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not that the previous attempts weren't interesting, especially the first one coming in from the side, but man, I wish they could find a way to get a road. I mean, I know they can't, but if they could build a road up there and get some heavy drilling equipment and come down from the top with some real stuff, that would be so great. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. And then, I think on the chips and salsa, Brandon's dropped some interesting hints. So I don't know. I think I get the sense that this is going to be an absolutely crazy season, but they've done a pretty good job of being tight-lipped about it.
Amen to that.
Frustrating.
Yeah, just imagine how much they have to be chomping at the bit to have had to wait all this time to be able to talk about it. And I think that's going to be exciting. So, Dennis, before we get to you, let's Raj, you've got that trailer for season 5, don't you?
I do. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Let's show folks the trailer.
Roll that
Okay.
beautiful drone footage.
Here we go.
We are on the cusp of discovering the secret of Skinwalker Ranch. The world is watching.
This season on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
We need to flood Skinwalker Ranch with instruments. Maybe we send 1.6 gigahertz at it. This is unlike any experiment we've done before.
Heads up, they're coming down!
Oh my God, is there some invisible force causing this to happen?
What is inside the mesa?
Look at that. It's like jelly. I don't know what the hell that is.
The data shows the triangle could be a wormhole.
No way.
I don't think the public is ready for what you got.
Is the military letting us know we're being watched?
Do they know something we don't? What is that?
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. New season premieres Tuesday, April 23rd at 10. Part of History's Strange and Unusual. Only on the History Channel.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah.
So much to unpack there. And did I see a fighter jet? That looked like an F-18, maybe an F-35.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw the bigger plane, but I didn't
Oh.
spot the fighter jet, but I
Yeah,
was
maybe I
probably
was seeing
distracted.
things. Yeah, I don't have my glasses on, folks, so I may have literally been seeing things there. I don't know, but that piece of
It
jelly,
is a,
that
it's a
jelly thing
big,
there, I think that was
it's a,
probably the
let me
jelly.
just,
Go ahead.
let me share this. I just have to share this again. 'Cause I,
Put my
you see
four
that?
eyes on.
Yeah, that's a little bit bigger transport plane.
Yeah, that's not a fighter jet. Yeah, my bad. That looks like a C C C30 C31. I don't know what do they call that
That's
big?
flying really low.
Yeah. Wow.
It definitely doesn't need to be right there, though.
No, that's
intriguing.
that's not very. I don't think that's proper cruising altitude for an aircraft like that.
No, that's
No,
sightseeing.
that is so
altitude.
close.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow. How about that? Yeah, well, this is a family show. I guess maybe I shouldn't say what I thought that little jelly-like substance that they found was. And no, my mind's not going there, folks. So get your minds out of the gutter. It was just I'm debating whether to make a snide comment about one of our favorite debunkers.
Oh,
Okay, I'll say it. Maybe they're going to find Stephen Greenstreet's diaphragm in the buried in the mesa. You never know, right?
at this point, anything's possible.
And there goes our family show rating.
Yeah.
No, seriously, guys, thoughts from what we just saw there in the trailer. Anything stand out before we get back to season 5?
Well, the drones all fell out of the sky, right?
Sure looked that way, yeah.
I mean, it looked like massive disaster because we know those aren't cheap.
No,
and they don't just fall out of the sky.
And they don't just fall out of the sky.
Covering somebody, like, because they're coming down on them. So that's crazy.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed is one of the guys that what did he say? He said that he didn't think the public were ready for it. That's Chris Porritt. Do you guys remember who Chris Porritt is?
Was he the sheriff?
Sheriff, yeah.
Yes, he's the former sheriff's deputy, county sheriff deputy that if I remember correctly, he knew the Myers, the family that was there before Sherman's. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, or if you guys have read the Hunt for the Skinwalker book and remember the episode that Chris Porritt was in, which I think was in season 2. But he mentioned that not only did when he was there on the ranch, there was these cattle that were missing, and they found the cattle were actually stacked on top of each other in one of the barns in like a trance-like state. And so he was a witness to that, I believe, and also he was the guy that said that they found this indentation in the field, one of the fields there, I think over there where it's either OT1 or OT2 is, where he said, well, that's where he called it the spaceship. He says that's where a spaceship landed. So Chris Porritt does have a history with the ranch in the capacity as a county sheriff's deputy, and so to see him coming back this season makes me pretty excited to see what his contribution is going to be this season. And that brings up a fun topic. Who from any seasons past, who are some of the people you'd like to see come back that maybe we haven't seen in a while, like Chris Porritt? Anybody come to mind?
If it counts the native drummers, I'd like to see them come back.
Yes. Was it Blazing Bear? Was that
Blazing Bear? But I don't know if they want to come back.
Right.
I'd like to see the guy that, sorry.
No, John, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'd like to see the guy that I can't think of his name, but I think it was season 4 that he did this. He built his own equipment to do this.
Jan, the GPR guy.
Yeah, right. That guy.
Yeah,
I want to see him come back. Because that was the best when he's turning his stuff on. He's like, "Are you guys messing with me?" He's like, he's grinning like, "What are you guys playing with me? Is this a joke? Are you
Yeah.
pranking me?" I would love to see that guy back because that was pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah. Roger, how about you? Anybody you like to see come back? Is Roger there?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here. I was
Sorry,
just thinking,
I froze for a moment. Sorry, guys.
oh, no worries. You talk about Skinwalker Ranch and strange things happen.
Always.
I would like to actually, I think it'd be really interesting to get both Jay Stratton and Colonel Alexander in the same room talking about their experiences and just things that have happened in season 5, right? Like, I just think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Bartell.
that'd be great.
Gosh, I'd love to see Bartell come back and
Those guys, the OG crowd
right. Yeah.
from the
Right.
Yeah.
NIDS days. Yeah, get some of them in there.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would like to yeah, I agree with you, Raj. I'm secretly hoping, and I don't have any kind of inside knowledge. This is just sheer speculation on Jim's part, but I would love to see Jay come back as well. And I have a feeling that because Jay was at Phenomicon last year while they were filming, that maybe we will get a chance to see Jay this season on season 5 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. That would make my day. I'd love to see him come back in whatever capacity it is that he comes back in. So he's one of the people on my list I'd love to see to come back. Another one that obviously Pete Kelsey. I'd love to see Pete Kelsey come back, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that we will see Pete.
Oh, Pete, yeah.
But also I'm one person that we haven't seen on the ranch in a while. Gosh, I can't. I wrote his name down the other night. I can't. I gotta see if I can remember this guy's name. Oh, who is he? This is horrible. Ah, yes. Another guy I'd love to see come on the ranch in some capacity would be Gary Voorhees. If you remember, Gary Voorhees was in season 3, I think, when they brought the UAPX guys on the ranch.
Yeah.
And Gary Voorhees, of course, was one of the guys, I believe he worked on the USS Princeton, which was part of the Nimitz carrier group that experienced the Tic Tac incident back in 2004. And Roger and I actually got a chance to meet Gary Voorhees at Phenomicon and talk about a cool guy. We really enjoyed getting to talk to Gary at Phenomicon, and he's another one that I would kind of like to see what, if any, kind of new perspectives he has. Don't know if that'll happen in season 5, but he was another one that when I was thinking of people that I might like to see come back in some capacity, but absolutely Bartell, Stratton, Kelsey, all the guys, I guess you could say. So, Dennis, let's get back to you. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to that you hope to see continue on or maybe come to light in season 5?
I'm a big fan of the Mesa. I want to see what's in there. I have theories from. I just feel like there's a giant meteorite in there, right? Like I feel like it's because I told you that I've been digging into the geology of the basin, and I keep thinking, 50 million years ago it was water. There was like an ocean there,
Right.
and if a meteor went into an ocean and went into the sedimentary, the sediments on the bottom of the ocean, it forms rocks. I can't remember the gentleman's name that was the science teacher, the older guy from the area,
Junior Hicks.
Mhm.
Junior Hicks. He said in one of the videos I saw of him was, if you want to know something weird's fixing to happen, just carry a compass with you, an old school compass.
Right.
And when you're on the ranch, and he said when it starts doing weird things, just expect something, because that's when it's going to happen.
Right.
And what could cause such a magnetic anomaly? A big ass meteor.
Oh.
That's just what I'm thinking. and we know there's underground water that runs in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so there definitely could be some radiation spreading around the ranch. Remember the cistern that was in Homestead 2?
Right.
They had a cistern down there that they had radiation in. Well,
Right.
that water came from somewhere, So, I mean, I wish it would be like a cool flying saucer in there, a sport model or something,
Mm-hmm.
that just got left, ran out of gas on Earth, you know. Uh, but that's kind of my hopes. I, honestly, the invisible stuff drives me crazy. I want something kind of tangible that I could grab onto.
Right.
So but yeah, I'd say the Mesa. I hope they do something, but I understand the logistics of that. Are probably it's incredible since they don't own the whole Mesa, from
Right.
what I understand. They just own like a side of it. So you can't just go in there, with a big claw and start digging it out.
Right.
So yeah, that's my hopes for the season. My big hope is I'd love to see what's in the Mesa, or no.
Same here. I'd love to see that as well. Roger, how about you? What are some of the things you're looking forward to, or that you'd like to see advance in season 5?
I think the number one thing for me is just what's above that triangle. And again, because I think that, just from watching and talking with, in the past with Caleb and the others, obviously it feels like, to me, it's just my own opinion only, so I'll caveat that, but something is there that can cloak, but not only cloak, it can allow things to pass through it. It can seem solid at times, right? There's the time anomaly. So is it, like, really exciting when we watched that trailer for season 5, but just that brief clip of like a wormhole, right? There's an actual,
Yeah.
we've never proved that we can make a stable wormhole, but what if that is the one end of a wormhole there, right? How is that stationed? I mean, it's just, again, the realm of science fiction, but it's awesome. And just, even small pieces of data like that, just coming back to stack on the other things that we know, that's what really excites me for season 5.
Cool.
Awesome. And I actually agree with all of you. I would like to see the same thing, the same things happen. I would also add, I am really excited to see more information on the Lunasonde experiment that we saw at the end of season 4, where they did the underground surveying that showed that there appeared to be some kind of passageways, at least in portions, underneath the ranch. And I believe they said that there was some metallic composition to some of those alleged passageways. So I would love to see some more development on that and see where that goes, and see if maybe there is, something to all these, age-old myths of there being structures underneath the ranch. Whether that means is it a base? I'm just really kind of curious to see the extent of the imaging they were able to get with Lunasonde, because I think that's really forward-thinking technology, really exciting technology to be able to get that kind of imaging underground with that kind of depth and clarity, is really exciting to me. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really anxious to see if they make any more progress on the Mesa, and what that big, what is it, 400-foot wide domed object that's allegedly inside the Mesa. I think we all are really anxious to know about that. So far, the only things we know about it is its dimensions, and that at least some of the material on the outside of it is a combination of tellurium and europium, which are two rare elements, and they were fused together. So that means it was not a natural process. It was something that was done deliberately. You can say man-made, or some other, you know, it was done by means of technology, is the implication that, at least that I got from the professor at University of Utah that did the analysis on it, because he specifically said it was fused together. It was not made through any known natural process. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens with the Mesa, and I'd like to see. I'm really anxious to see more about what kind of experiments they're going to do to maybe get a repeatable result of what they experienced when the blob appeared. And clearly there appears to be some kind of military, presumably some kind of, black op or secret military surveillance of the property going on. I'm kind of curious as to if we'll ever find out the extent of that and if that really is what's going on. Because another thing to think about, folks, is what about, obviously now Skinwalker Ranch is in the mainstream consciousness, if you will. It's a successful docuseries, not just in the United States, but in Canada and in Europe as well. As evidenced by the fact that we have Skinwalker Ranch Insiders from literally all around the planet. And so you have to ask yourself, if our military, presumably, is taking such an active interest in surveilling and finding out what's going on right now on the ranch, what kind of an interest and to what lengths will our foreign adversaries, if not our own allies, try to employ to find out stuff as well? So I think there's also, a concern there that there's, always the potential that you don't know whose eyes and ears are going to be on the experiments of and the team and what they're doing out there. So that's something that's kind of been weighing on my mind recently. And I'd love to see more. We kind of got into this with Chris Bartell a couple of weeks ago with, I'd like to see, maybe bringing in more of the native background, more of the native approach, like we saw last year when John Dover brought in Blazing Bear and we had the drum circle. I was really fascinated with the results that we got out of that experiment, and I would like to see more of that. I'd love to see more of, but of course the difficulty with that, I would presume, is that we know that there's so much of a legend, so much of a bad vibe around the native, particularly the Ute community that's there, that surrounds the ranch, that there's such a kind of a, bad juju, if you will, because of the whole Skinwalker curse. And as we've talked with John Dover in the past, by way of Jeff Freeman's podcast, J-Free 906, that this Skinwalker thing is something that the natives take very seriously. And I think while we like to be led by science and we like to be able to neatly fit things into boxes, at least as best as we can, I don't think we should ever discount the value of the Native American perspective, and particularly the way the ancients viewed things like Skinwalker Ranch, and the way the ancients not only experienced these phenomena, but how they described and how they structured their lives around it, because these things were happening in the basin long before any of us ever knew what Skinwalker Ranch was, long before the days of Bob Bigelow, the Shermans, or even the Myers family. So I think it'd be neat to see the team, still, lean on the Native American community for guidance and wisdom and input on some things. I think we've seen a lot of that in the past seasons, which is a good thing. They have the respect, I think, of the Native American community out there. You've got Don, I forget Don's last name, but Don's always coming out and helping out on the ranch wherever he can. And he's very actively involved. He's a member of the tribe. And so it's great, I think, to have that kind of resource available to the ranch, to have that Native American community, and hopefully some of what they're able to show to the world out there, the team there at Skinwalker Ranch, hopefully that helps to break down some of the barriers that might be there for people that are maybe reluctant or hesitant to talk about it, that are from that Native American community. And of course, I'm speaking from an outsider. I don't, I can't even begin to claim knowledge on such things, so I don't want to overstep my bounds and be disrespectful. But just at least from my perspective, I would like to see the team continue to work in partnership with the Utes and the other Native American community that's out there, and I'd love to see that partnership strengthen and grow, because I think that's only going to help everybody involved as we try to uh, get some additional clarity and better understanding of what's out there on the ranch. So those are my big things. But man, I don't know about you guys, but I'm chomping at the bit. I'm so excited for Tuesday.
Ready.
Tuesday cannot get here soon enough. So do you guys have any special plans? Any special foods or snacks you're preparing? Any tacos maybe?
I don't know. I haven't planned anything yet.
Raj, what are you gonna do? You gonna do anything special for it?
Well, I'm gonna stay up and watch the episode. Of course, I'm gonna buy the season on Amazon Prime so I can go back and watch it. So once it comes out actually on Amazon Prime, I'm gonna watch it and then probably watch it a couple more times and take notes on it, just so I can compare that first episode to anything previously. And I probably won't get a lot of sleep, to be honest. So it's gonna be exciting.
Same here. I stream mine through Amazon Prime. I buy the season. That way, usually within about an hour or two after the episodes air, I get to watch them. So sometimes I have to stay up till 11 o'clock or midnight to watch them. But like Roger, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make because I'm usually awake anyway, right? So, but yeah, no, thanks
Awesome.
again. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us for this wonderful conversation. You guys have been fantastic, John and Dennis and Roger. You guys are the best. Let's so before we go, we gotta have a conversation. We gotta shift gears here. And I'll apologize in advance to the folks at home. But we've got three musicians in the house. We've got three guys that love guitars and two guys that actually can play guitar because not so much. I can play one Duran Duran riff. That's and I can play "Personal Jesus" from Depeche Mode, which
There you go.
having a
Yeah,
Gretsch, that's perfect. But you two guys are really the musicians in the bunch. So let's take a moment and talk about. We'll start with guitars. Dennis, what are some of your what kind of guitars do you got? What are some of your favorite axes to play?
Like my number one is a Stratocaster, like, and then I have a Telecaster, which is my kind of backup to that, and then I have a Paul Reed Smith. That's my three electrics that I have.
Nice.
So,
And
you know.
we gotta correct me if I'm wrong on my history, Dennis, but you actually you knew Stevie Ray Vaughan back in the day, didn't you? You
Oh yes, yeah,
grew up in in an area where he was, right?
yeah. He went to like a high school right where we were kind of neighbor high schools, but Stevie was 7 years older than me, you know.
Okay.
But there was a park that was local where Stevie played when he was young, and we used to. I saw him play like acoustic at the park, but he was just Steve. He was just Steve Vaughan. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't Stevie Ray yet. I always joke about. I know his brother stole my bicycle.
Jimmy?
Yeah.
Wow.
I always say that, like, and I said, but that's cool because Stevie stole his licks.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You know.
John,
You
how
know.
about you? Tell us about your guitars.
I have two electrics. I've had Strats in the past. I think I had a Kramer, I had an Ibanez. My first good electric was an Ibanez, back in high school. But right now I have my new PRS Silver Sky, which is the John Mayer
Yeah.
Strat like
Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Oh, it's freaking great guitar. And I've had that for just a few months, I think. But the other guitar I've had since 1991 is a Zion Classic Maple guitar. Yeah, it's the best guitar I've ever played. I'll never sell it. I've had people asked to buy it from me, and including professional musicians, a couple of times that have had a chance to play it. You know, like one time some people were in town, a band was in town, they got asked to do like an impromptu show, and they didn't have their stuff with them, but the guys were here. So I let the guitar player my guitar, and he's like, all right, for real, how much will you take for this guitar? And I'm like, I'm not selling it, man.
Wow.
Not selling
I
it.
hear you.
I will
I
never
hear
sell
you.
that thing.
Nice.
I'm taking it to the grave with me.
There you go.
Well, you know, I actually I'm kind of ashamed. Well, I don't have just one guitar. I have a really beautiful white and gold Gretsch Electromatic because I've always loved the tone that a Gretsch puts out. I've always been a fan of some of the classic Gretsch players like Brian Setzer of the Stray Cats and Billy Duffy of a band called The Cult. Plays a Gretsch, and of course Martin Gore of Depeche Mode. Pretty much all he plays is Gretches, and so I've always loved the tone of a Gretsch, but I also really love the tone of a Telecaster. That Fender Telecaster sound. That you know, there's something about that classic tone of a Telecaster with those pickups. I just love it. So let me ask you guys. You know, we'll talk about favorite guitarists and favorite influences here. Now, my all-time favorite guitar player, David Gilmour of the Pink Floyd. I've always been a fan of stuff that's more blues flavored. That's why also a big fan of Stevie Ray, I have to admit. But something about David Gilmour, the way that just the way that he plays, just really moves me. And I'm talking specifically from, you know, say the Animals. Well, Dark Side of the Moon. You know, obviously Up Through the Wall. I love Comfortably Numb is one of my all-time favorite guitar solos. But you know, even some of the Pink Floyd's stuff from like the Division Bell, I liked quite a bit. Some of their instrumentals like Sorrow or not Sorrow, Marooned. You know, great blues type stuff. And Dennis, I have watched you play some of your guitar playing, and you can make that Strat sing like nobody's business. And I love
Thank you, man.
listening to you play. Who are some
Thank
of
you.
your guitar influences?
My favorite guitar player of all time is Gary Moore.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes.
Thin Lizzy.
Yes.
Thin Lizzy was one of my favorite bands of all time. And let's see. It is hard to pick. Of course, I love classic Hendrix. I love Stevie Ray. Blue, when you get to Blue, I love Buddy Guy. Buddy Guy is just he's just such a wonderful soul. I mean, he's a bright light in the world of music, you know. And I don't know if you know this, but he once toured across Canada with the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin.
Oh wow.
If you can imagine that show with Buddy Guy, he said he didn't have a clue with what was going on. You know, but yeah, that's kind of you know, a couple of my favorites right there, you know, for sure.
Right on. And John, I know you've mentioned to me one time you're a big Luke fan. Tell us about
I'm an
some
80s
of
guy.
your tell us about some of your guitar guys.
So yeah, I started learning in the 80s, and all my favorite players are the studio players because I used to be a liner notes nerd.
Oh, I still am.
Every album that I listened to, I had the guitar players, the keyboard players, the drummers, the background vocalist, the producer, the recording engineer, the mix engineer, the mastering engineer. I knew them all, and I still do for the ones back then. Like, yeah, who played guitar on this song on that album? Like, I'll tell you, you know. But yeah, it was the 80s studio players, Michael Landau, Steve Lukather, and Dan Huff.
Oh yes.
Dan Huff is my all-time guitar god hero. Like I learned, yeah, if he was on everything in the 80s, but yeah, you turn on the radio, it didn't matter who was playing, he was playing on that song. And yeah, he's amazing.
Oh yeah. Well,
Awesome.
you had, well, look at
Awesome.
all the guys that were in Toto. I mean, Jeff Porcaro,
Oh
one of the
Lord.
greatest drummers of all time. I mean,
Yep. One of my
when you even
favorites.
you even get a guy like Neil Peart, who I consider the greatest rock drummer of all time, was given
Ditto.
props to Jeff Porcaro. I mean, he
Yep.
was
You know.
just he was something special. And
Yep.
you know, I've you know, getting back to guitars a little bit. I'm also a huge fan of Rickenbackers. I love that kind of that jangly sound that like a Rickenbacker 360 has.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny
Yeah.
Marr from the Smiths, you know, was famous for playing one of those. Obviously, the Byrds, you know, a lot of the bands back in the late '60s used Rickenbackers quite a bit. But correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis. You actually are one of the few people I've met that knows about Strymon pedals, and you
Oh,
use
yes.
Strymon. I mean, I
Mm.
live and die by Strymon, the Strymon Big Sky or the Strymon Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Best reverb pedal I have ever come across in my life. Better than
Yep.
Lexicon, better than anything I've ever encountered.
And you can pay a lot more for, I mean, they're
Oh, yeah,
expensive pedals, but they're not like $1,000 or like some reverbs you see out
right.
there, some limited edition. Strymon does make a quality pedal, but
Yeah.
on my board, I got something from everybody.
Yeah.
Like really, really,
You
if it
got
doesn't,
any Electro Harmonics pedals in there? Or?
yeah, let's
Yeah.
see. Yeah, that and some full tone. I'm trying to think. I got the pod,
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
polyoctave.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, they come and go. I mean, I don't ever sell my pedals, but I put them on, take them off, try this, do that.
Oh
So
yeah. That's what they're
yeah,
designed for, right?
you know, yeah, yeah. I really tried to do a multi effects pedals, but I just never could. It's just too much tweaking and getting levels right and everything. I'd rather just shove. I'm an analog man. I just shove a cord in it and let's go.
Right
you
on.
know.
Yeah, one of the pedals that I've been on the lookout for years is the old Electro Harmonics Clone Theory, which is like a chorus pedal that just there's nothing like it. And a lot of my favorite players, particularly bass player, one of my all-time favorite bass players is a guy named Peter Hook, who was the bass player for Joy Division and New Order. And he always kind of played his bass guitar like a lead guitar. So he always played really high up on the frets, and just the sound that he had was just really unique to both Joy Division and New Order. And one of the pedals that he used was that Electro Harmonics Clone Theory to get that amazing chorus that just cuts through a mix like nobody's business. Which, you know, now we're getting into audio engineering, which is where I really go down the rabbit hole, because that's what I'm all about. But
Exactly.
what are
Exactly.
some of
That's cool.
we'll wrap up here. What are some of your favorite albums of all time, or favorite guitar tunes? What are the songs or the albums that just absolutely stop you in your tracks still and make the hair stand up on the back of your neck? Do you have any songs or albums that are like that for you, that do that for you?
Probably favorite album. It depends on how old you were when they came out too. But 2112 Rush, one
Oh
of my
yeah.
very favorite albums of all time. And it was a theme, whatever theme album.
Hmm.
So that uh I, I love Triumph, the
Hmm.
Canadian power trio.
Oh yes.
Just any Triumph album I loved. I think they only made 5 or 6,
Yeah,
but
they didn't do very many.
yeah, they didn't do very many. It seemed when I look back, it's like I love trios. I
Hmm.
love ZZ Top. I love Rush. I love Triumph. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Stevie.
Yeah.
Tommy Shannon. What a bass player.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess because they were rhythm, they were lead, they played everything in the
Hmm.
bands,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I would say it's really tough now looking back of favorite albums. I don't think there was any I ever really wore out. except maybe Are You Experienced by Hendrix. I maybe went 2 or 3 of those,
Right.
Yeah. I
John,
bet John's got some.
how about you, John?
Well, I think for me, I mean, there's the Boston their original
Oh
album
gosh.
on there.
Tom Schultz.
Foreplay is like one of the best songs of all time.
Yeah,
it's one of my
Exactly.
favorite Boston tunes.
I could probably pick 3 Kansas albums,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Toto 4.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites. But back in the 80s, I also used to listen to a ton of Christian stuff. And this my absolute favorite 2 albums is there was a guy named Russ Taff that's a singer. He did a self-titled album, so it's just called Russ Taff. And then Amy Grant, you probably have heard of her.
Oh yeah.
Album called Lead Me On.
I sat next to her at the Grammys a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, her and Vince Gill both. Yeah.
Those 2 albums, if you listen to them, the players on them, the songwriting, the lyrics, the production are insane. They are so good.
Didn't Michael W. Smith do some production for her back in those days?
Oh, he used to play. He did a lot of keyboard stuff, some songwriting. Yeah, he used to write some music, but a lot of his lyrics were written by a guy named Wayne Kirkpatrick.
Kirkpatrick,
liner note.
Yep.
Nerd.
Hey, I'm right there with you, and I'm not even a Christian rock guy, but my wife is like a huge Amy Grant fan. She loved her stuff back in the 80s. Yeah.
Wayne wrote a lot of her lyrics. He's written some of the best lyrics I've ever heard in my life. Like to this day, any genre, you name it, he's written something. I mean, I get chills listening to some of his stuff because I'm like, how good do you have to be to put that sentence together?
Right.
It's just so creative. And he's written for tons of different artists. But like he wrote, like one line that just popped into my head was he wrote, ask the ocean where the water meets the land, and he will tell you it depends on where you stand.
Nice.
What a great line.
I like that. That's cool.
But he wrote a song for Susan Ashton that has all these metaphors in it that I won't even go. You don't get me started. But the dude is lyric.
We've gone down so many rabbit holes already. Yeah.
Yes.
So here, you guys are going to probably, you might get a kick out of this. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with either one of you, but I have a reputation for being the synth guy, because I'm all about synthesizers, and especially Roland synthesizers. That's my, I'm the world's biggest Roland fanboy that there is, because literally every synthesizer I own is a Roland. But my very first album that I ever bought, I was at the ripe old age of, I think, 7 years old, was this was back about 1978, 79 time frame, and Kiss Destroyer, their Destroyer album. And to this day, despite the fact that I listened to OMD and Erasure and Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, The Cure, I am still a Kiss fan, and I've always been a fan of Kiss. And that classic lineup of Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss, just, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love Kiss.
Black Diamond.
What's that?
Detroit Rock City and Black Diamond.
Yeah.
Those 2 songs.
Beth, and Shout It Out Loud.
Yes.
Shout it.
How about just the whole Kiss Alive album?
Oh,
right?
Oh, it's one of the greatest live albums of all time.
Exactly. Exactly. It really is. It's got everything on it.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I mean, I even like the stuff that Kiss got into, when the makeup came off back in the 80s, like Heaven's on Fire and, Lick It Up. I mean, all that, I'm still a proud member of Kiss Army.
I even liked the concept album that they did that everyone hated.
Oh, really?
From the Elder. Did you?
I don't know if I'm familiar with that.
They wrote this whole concept album like it was a movie, and it's called Music from the Elder. And the cover art was a guy reaching for like a door handle, like the round kind of door handle on an old door.
Oh wow!
And it had a couple good songs on it. I liked it, but everyone else hated it. So
was it Kiss that came out with 4 solo albums at the same time?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And most of them were bad.
Remember the
They
different,
were
the
all
different,
bad.
the different covers? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, their face, it was like their Annie Leibovitz or somebody did all the like
Yeah.
pictures or something.
I remember the first photos of Kiss with their makeup off, and I'm like, dude, put the makeup back on. So I
Bad
got
idea.
it.
Bad idea.
And that reminds me, the very first Grammy Awards I ever went to, I went as a guest of my sister, who was a member of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, the Miami chapter. And this would be my sister Christine, because I know she's going to watch this later. But so this was in 1996 in LA, and they used to do the Grammys. They used to host them when they were in LA. They used to do them at the Shrine Auditorium, and now, of course, they do it at the Staples Center in the LA Convention Center because it's gotten so big. But back then, the Academy was still relatively small there in the mid to late 90s. And so the big thing that happened that year at that particular Grammy Awards, that was the year that Kiss came out. They'd reunited. All the original 4 band members were back together and going on their reunion tour. And the person that introduced them at the Grammy Awards that year was none other than Tupac Shakur, if that tells you anything.
Wow.
Wow.
But here's the story. Now you guys have seen what I look like when I don't have the hat on, and how I, have my hair kind of standing straight up. And so if you'll imagine, I was about 100 pounds lighter, so I was a lot skinnier than I am now. And I had blonde frosted, the top of my hair was kind of frosted blonde. And so the way they do the Grammys is they have what they call the pre-telecast ceremony, and then they have the live telecast. Well, during the pre-telecast ceremony is when they find out, they reveal who all the winners are for all the non-major categories, like, best classical album, best, engineered classical album, spoken word, polka album, all but basically the big 5 or 6 categories that they save for the 3-hour telecast. So in between, when that pre-telecast ceremony ends and the telecast begins, there was about a half hour or 45-minute break before you had to be seated before the telecast began. And so with being a member of the Academy, they have an open bar. So it's drink all you want. I mean, literally, we're talking high-end vodkas like, Belvedere vodka and Patron. I mean, all this great high-end liquor was there. And so I'm standing there. I'm there as a guest of my sister. And so we're waiting to go in, be seated for the telecast. And so my sister, she says, I got to use the restroom. So she hands me her coat and her purse. So here I am, standing out in the hallway, and I've got this, my sister's coat, and I'm got this purse, and I'm feeling really stupid standing there in my tuxedo. And all of a sudden I see Paul Stanley walking toward me. And now I recognized him right away because, again, I grew up being a Kiss fan. And one of the first things, I was kind of surprised at how short he was, because you never really get an idea in person. And I'm about 6'2", so I'm a fairly tall guy. And of course he's walking toward me, and he's got this gorgeous blonde on his arm. And she does the same thing to him. She hands him her coat and her purse, and she says, I'll be right back, honey. And so me and Paul Stanley are literally, standing maybe 6 or 7 feet apart from each other. And I'm kind of like, boy, I feel really awkward. And he just kind of looks over at me, and he's like, this is about the time when guys like us feel kind of silly, huh? And I'm like, yeah. So he's looking at me, and he's like, we're just making small talk while my sister and his date there are there. I mean, may have been his wife, I don't know, but they're there. Well, they're in the restroom. We're just making small talk, and all of a sudden he looks at me. He's going, I know you. And I'm like, I know you too. He's like, no, you're a musician, right? You're a performer. And I'm like, because obviously I'm a musician, and I'm thinking, oh, my sister put him up to something. Okay, I'll play along. So he's like, yeah, you're Miami, right? You're based out of Miami. And I'm like, okay, yeah, my sister definitely put him up to, because she was there from the Miami chapter of NARIS, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. So I'm like, yeah, I'm here with yeah, Miami. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, you had that song that came out a couple years ago, was really popular. And I'm like, no, no. He's like, yeah, yeah, you were he's like, yeah, that you ripped off Queen and David Bowie. And I'm like, and then it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, he thinks I'm Vanilla Ice. And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, your name's he's like, I can't remember your stage name, but your name's Rob, right? And I'm like, no, no, my name's Jimm. I was like, he's like, well, he's like, it's okay, man. You know, don't worry about it. We're here. I'm like, no, my name's Jimm. I was born and raised in Binghamton, New York, and you know, I actually live in Salt Lake City, and I am a musician. I'm a songwriter, but I do synth pop. He's like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. And then it was like, and then my sister came out, and his date came out about the same time, and just that was one of my first experiences at the Grammys. Was here I am, this, you know, one of my first music heroes comes up to me. We're standing outside the bathroom there, and it's like, oh gosh, yeah, that's something I get to tell my grandkids about. So that was kind of cool. You
And
really,
what's funny about that is I can finish the name. It's Robbie Van Winkle.
Robert
He's from
Van Winkle.
Dallas. He's from Dallas, and I used to race motorcycles with him when I was a kid.
Oh my
Amazing.
gosh.
I
Oh my
swear.
gosh.
And
Yeah.
like I remember when he came out, all of a sudden I see this Vanilla Ice guy, and he like went to Miami, and he's from the hood. And I was thinking, no, man, your dad was a pilot. His dad was a pilot. And he lived in the richest part of Dallas.
Oh my
You know?
gosh.
Yeah, so funny, so
Oh.
funny. But
Oh.
you're the big version of Vanilla Ice.
I've never met Vanilla. I've never seen him, so I don't know
Oh,
if is he taller than me, or he looks pretty tall.
He's about the same height, but he's always been skinny.
Ah,
He's always been a skinny guy. You know?
I was skinny right up until shortly after I got married. You know, you always
Dude,
put
I
on
get
pounds
it.
after that.
It's the baby weight.
Yeah.
Sympathy,
I'll
baby
go
weight.
with that one. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep. Same thing happened to me. I used
Roger, you got to go to the Grammys with me once. That was a rather memorable trip as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun actually. Just yeah, I'll never forget, you know, Jimm, what you told me. It's like just act like you belong there, right? Don't look at people and be like all starstruck or anything. So, you know, we just acted like we belong there. And it's amazing how many music celebrities would look over at you and then look at you and then kind of like nod, like, yeah, like I know you. And I'm like, you don't know me.
Oh,
But yeah, we had a lot of fun.
so you remember, Raj?
That's awesome.
Now when Raj and I would go to the Grammys, we would rent a Cadillac in Salt Lake City and road trip from Salt Lake City out to LA. And that was half of the fun right there. It was just the road trip from Salt Lake to LA. But the night before the Grammys, when Raj and I were out there, this would have been what, 2008, maybe, Raj?
Yeah.
And so we're at the Biltmore, which is this beautiful, classic, historic downtown in the business district of LA. And one of the things at the Biltmore, and there's a lot of movies that have been filmed at the Biltmore, but one of the things that the Biltmore was famous for was they had this bar, and I think the bar was called Bernard's or something like that, and it's got this absolutely wonderful jazz trio that would play there on weekend nights. And so we're there on a Saturday night, and it's not uncommon to see guys that are big jazz freaks like Brian Setzer come in and the night before the Grammys and just, you know, kind of enjoy the jazz trio and the atmosphere that's there. And so Roger and me and the two friends of ours that came with us were sitting at this table there in the bar there at the Biltmore, listening to this great jazz trio, and Cyndi Lauper comes walking in with her band because she was going to be one of the entertainers at the Academy party after the Grammys the following day. So Cyndi Lauper comes walking in, and she goes back to this, you know, reserved space in the back of the bar, and she's within eye shot of us, and we can see that she keeps, like Roger's saying, she would occasionally peek over the shoulder of, because she was sitting towards us, but she had the guys in her band were kind of sitting around the table, and she would occasionally just kind of peek around, and it looked like she was looking directly at us. And so it's like she's trying to figure out who we are. And, I mean, admittedly, we're dressed to the nines. I mean, we look like we belong in LA, like we are rock stars. I mean, I had the sunglasses, I had the hair, I had this, great, Giorgio Armani jacket with a Pink Floyd t-shirt and a great pair of jeans, and so I looked the part, and so did Brett, our friend Brett Peterson was there, and he looked even more so the part of a rock star. And so finally a waitress comes over, and she's like, so Cindy, Miss Lomper back there wanted me to ask, she's been trying to figure out who you guys are. And so she's like, who are you guys? and Roger and I are just looking at each other like, how much fun do we want to have with this? And so we're just like, well, we're just members of the academy that are, we're here in town. I'm a producer and an audio engineer. I'm from New York originally. And she's like, well, Cindy Lauper's from New York. Maybe did you know her? And she's like, what's your name? And so I told her my name, and she goes back to Cindy Lauper's table, and you can see she's talking, and she's peeking, and she's squinting her eyes, and she's doing this, and she's going. And it's like she was trying to figure out who we are, and we're literally nobodies. But like Roger says, when you're in LA, especially when you're at the Grammys, if any of you ever get to go to the Grammys, just act like you belong there, and you'll fit in, because people aren't going to ask you,
there you go,
any questions. But that was, we've got some other stories that Roger and I could tell that are definitely not suitable for
no, it's not family friendly
for the times that we were out there. But yeah, music is just literally, I mean, that's what my life is. Get me talking about it and talking about rabbit holes, man, we're gone.
There you go.
But again, thank you so much, Dennis and John and Roger. Let's just kind of tie this all up real quick, and we'll finish with this. Just any closing thoughts or remarks about Skinwalker Ranch, or any of the things that we've talked about tonight? Any closing thoughts or remarks? And Dennis, we'll start with you.
I'm super excited for the new season, and man, I don't know what I can say we haven't said already. I thank everybody. It's good to see John. Hadn't seen him since Phenomicon. It's great to meet Roger. Good to see Jimm. Oh, I did have some inside information on the Nazca mummies.
Oh.
They were found with cilantro in their bellies.
Oh, Roger, we got to tell Denny about that one. Denny, if you're watching this, you saw this.
Oh yeah.
So you're saying we could make tacos out of them?
You could make tacos out of the Nazca mummies.
There you go. I know if you're a cilantro aficionado.
Oh man, anybody that knows me knows that the whole taco thing is a thing with me. I do genuinely love tacos, and I will not have a taco unless it has cilantro and onions on it.
And onions. Street tacos are the bomb.
Got to have cilantro, onions, and a little bit of lime to squeeze on it. Fresh lime wedges to squeeze on it.
That's it.
Man, that's awesome.
That's it.
Now, don't ever give me guacamole.
Don't even try to sneak it into a taco, huh?
Not even.
All right. Cool.
Right
cool,
on.
cool.
John, how about you? Closing thoughts or remarks?
I thought of one more thing I want to see answered this season. So I am absolutely so excited about this season. Sure. It was something at Phenomicon last year at the insider meet and greet when they played that audio of howling. I want to know what the hell that was, and I hope we find out more about that.
Yeah,
that's all I will say about that.
I could not agree more. And Roger, the last time we had Caleb on, we briefly touched upon that, and he said that if I'm not mistaken, and Caleb, if you watch this and I get this wrong, I apologize, but I think Roger, didn't he say that he was working on getting the permissions from the person who actually owns that audio to be able to post that on at least on the insider forums? Wasn't that what he was working on last week? We spoke to him about that.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I think that is coming, John. I think that
Cool.
we'll have to maybe ask Caleb about that when they do the first follow up and recap of the first episode of season 5. So that's a great thing to bring up. Thank you for bringing that up. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Oh, I got chills now thinking about that. Hearing
that was
that was
crazy.
the most creeped out I've been in years. Just
Yeah.
sitting in that room listening to that howl. So yeah, I hope
I wanted to ask Chris Bartell if he's actually heard that audio, because remember Roger, he was telling us about the just the otherworldly sound and guttural growl that what he described as that humongous wolf, that invisible wolf. Well, I shouldn't say invisible, because I guess didn't he say he actually caught a glimpse of it when it
Caught a
came out
glimpse
of
of it, yeah.
when it came out of the ditch or the gully there. But he said that thing made a sound that he's never heard before or since, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he? Didn't he mention something like
he
that?
did. It's like twice, and
Yeah.
it really scared him when he was out at the like the entrance gate there with him and the other dogs, including William, that were originally there, and then he heard that guttural sound again, turned, but there was nothing there, and he had to make that lone trek with the dogs back to the command center at the
Right.
time, and yeah, that would be
Yeah.
pretty scary.
Yeah. So I'd be
No doubt.
curious to know if Chris Bartell got to hear that recording that we got to hear that Caleb has, and see if there's any similarities to what's on that recording that Caleb played for us, and what Chris Bartell witnessed himself while he was there on the ranch that one night. So yeah, I remember hearing that, and that was just, I mean, the hair on. It's one of those things you always hear about infrasound, right? And how it can induce fear. And when Caleb played that, again, I as an audio engineer, I hear all kinds of sounds, the whole gamut of beautiful to horrifying, literally and figuratively. And that sound that Caleb played for us, I have never in my life, whether in a movie or otherwise, heard anything like it.
Yep.
But the moment I heard it, without having really any of the backstory to it, it just completely pierced me to my core and was like, okay, whatever that is, that's something truly scary and terrifying.
Mhm.
I've never heard
something
anything
we
like
have
it
not
before.
heard before. Yep.
Yeah.
Like I've heard lots of stuff. I've never heard it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Mhm.
Roger, closing thoughts or remarks from you?
No, really excited for season 5 of Skinwalker Ranch. And yes, John and Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time to talk not only about the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, but your passions and music. It's been a great episode, and I'm really excited for all of our listeners to hear this once we get it posted. But thank you again for taking the time tonight, and it's been truly a pleasure talking with you both.
You as well.
Yeah, likewise.
Could not agree more. Thank you, as Roger says, John and Dennis. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and your busy schedules to meet with us and have this fantastic conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights with us and your perspectives and your thoughts. It was such a pleasure and an honor to get to know you guys at Phenomicon last year. It's been great to stay connected with you throughout this year on social media and Facebook. And I got to tell you, we're 4 of the lucky ones that were able to get our hands on the VIP passes for Phenomicon this year. So hopefully you guys won't be too cool for Roger and I, and we can sit at the same table.
Oh man, we're gonna have a blast.
They're at
We better be
Phenomicon.
at the same table.
I'm hoping so, and hopefully, if Mara Lee watches this, she'll be joining us too, because I think she was one of the lucky ones as well. So that'd be great. We'll get the whole band back together.
That's right, man. We're getting the band back together.
Right on. Well,
Awesome,
John
cool.
and Dennis,
Thank
thank you, and all of you folks out there, thank you for listening and watching us with this latest installment of the Soul of the Unexplained. Roger and I will actually be coming back next week. We're going to do the very first documentary review that we've been promising to do. And Roger, you want to tell us a little bit about what the documentary is that we're going to be doing the review on?
Yes, I won't give too much away because I want to review it and then have you guys watch it. But it's around a subject that both Jim and we never really put a lot of stock into it until, we started, I guess, just really, I guess for me it was that Expedition Bigfoot, but it's about Bigfoot and just some of the amazing connections and things that people have found. It's a great documentary that we're going to review. So tune in for that episode. We'll discuss it and then invite everyone to go out and watch it once we announce it there.
Cool.
Right on. So Roger and I are going to do our very first documentary review on a really cool documentary about Bigfoot, and we'll have more details on that when we debut it next week. So again, folks, if you like
Awesome.
what you saw and what you heard, then hit that subscribe button that's down there somewhere here on this YouTube thing, and that notification bell. That way, every time Roger and I have some new content to share, you guys will be notified. And thank you once again, folks, for putting up with my constant verbosity and loquaciousness, and for my crazy stories. And apologies to those of you with sensitivities about finding Greenstreet's diaphragm. Maybe we'll find that, maybe we won't. But that in and of itself would be another layer of mystery to the ranch of how did it get there?
Ooh.
Things to make you go.
In the middle of the net.
That's right. Anyhow, folks, thanks so much. We will Roger and I will see you next time. And until then, love one another, take care of one another, be nice to bunnies, eat as many tacos as you can, and just be awesome, folks. Never let the negativity in the world get you down, and try to surround yourself with people that make you feel good and that lift you up and that help you find the things that are good about you. And hopefully you'll find some people that are like that. And I know that I've been fortunate to find people like that, like these three fine gentlemen that are right here. And there's a lot of good people out there. So every time you read these stories about how horrible the world is, just know that there's still a lot of goodness in the world, and there's still a lot of good people in the world. And when you focus on that, and when you serve others and lift up others, you'll find that the burdens that you carry seem to get a little bit lighter every time you do that. And I firmly believe that. That's been my experience. And I just want to thank everybody that has played a role in helping me get through some of these difficult times that both Roger and I have had over the last year or so, with losing our parents and all the other ugly and nasty health issues that both Roger and I have had. So thank you to everybody that has been with us and has been supporting us, and just for all the wonderful spirit and vibes that so many of you have brought into my life and Roger's life as well. We appreciate you. We love you guys, and we will see all of you next time on The Soul of the Unexplained. See ya.